Chapter 40. Mu Ye's heart sank to the bottom of the valley when he saw the shameless smile on Fatty's face. Being at the arterial circulation realm, he had no way to dodge in the air. He could only watch helplessly as the arrows pierced through the air. Puchi. Mu Ye did his best to block two of the arrows, but one of them still pierced through the center of his brows. This time around, the price he had to pay was death. At the same instant that Mu Ye was struck, Huayan leapt down from the back of the Black Eagle and dashed towards Fan Lu. Qin Wendian stepped out, dashing towards Huayan. His dragon-subduing fists blasted out, clashing head-on with Huayan. Huayan's eyes flashed with an intense killing intent. The fearsome starfall fists swept out tyrannically, and Qin Wendian only felt a terrifying shockwave blasting towards him. Borrowing the force of the impact, he was sent flying backwards, slamming into Fan Lu, who was behind him. Fan Lu retreated a few steps, and only stabilized himself after he had retreated into the mist. "We can't win, what should we do?" Fan Lu sighed as he steadied Qin Wentian's body. "If we can't win, we can only run." Qin Wentian's arm was still in intense pain. If it weren't for his quick reflexes, his entire arm would have been crippled. Little Rascal seemed to understand Qin Wentian's intentions, and immediately rushed over. The two of them leapt onto Little Rascal's back, and Little Rascal directly brought them into the mist. This scene caused Huayan to be stunned. Didn't they know that the illusionary city was a forbidden zone? Idiots who don't know the immensity of death. Their first choice was to kill Mu Ye because they wanted to prevent him from pursuing them. Orphan walked up, silently sighing in his heart. The coordination between the two of them was too good, and there was even a demonic beast that could transform. If it wasn't for the fact that they were afraid of Mu Ye's demonic beasts chasing after them, they would have chosen to kill him first. Sadly, they were dead meat. The dark forest was extremely vast, and there were some places that they couldn't enter. The illusionary city was a forbidden zone, and once they entered, they wouldn't be able to come out. Everything is done. However, you have to account for Mu Ye's death. Huayan turned and left, causing Orphan's expression to stiffen. Amidst the dense fog, Little Rascal carried Qin Wendian and Fan Lu as they sprinted madly. "No one is chasing us?" Fan Lu asked. "Qin Wendian replied. "Something doesn't seem right. Could it be that it's very dangerous?" Fan Li's body trembled involuntarily. It seemed like they didn't dare to enter. "Little demon, am I going to die here?" Fatty sounded like he was about to cry. In the fog, they couldn't see the road clearly. They were actually lost. After another hour, they finally walked out of the fog. However, the moment they came out, they were shocked by what they saw. In front of them was a castle. Fog Illusion City. It wasn't an illusion city, it was a real castle. Not only that, but they also saw many armored soldiers in the castle. They were all clad in black armor and exuded a murderous aura. When they saw the two of them, a group of black armored soldiers walked over and pointed their spears at them. The murderous aura caused the Fatty to almost fall. "Fatty, I can't be this unlucky, right?" This time around, Fatty really cried. These people were all at the arterial circulation realm. Everyone's cultivation base was higher than his. There was no way he could escape. Qin Wendian didn't expect that there was such a castle hidden in the dark forest, and that it had trained a group of terrifying soldiers. The killing intent grew increasingly intense. Qin Wendian and Fatty released their astral souls as they made preparations to flee. Qin Wendian. At this moment, from afar, a silhouette clad in armor walked over and called out Qin Wentian's name. His voice was slightly hoarse, and his head was covered by a helmet, revealing only his eyes. "Ha!" Qin Wentian's eyes narrowed. In this place, there was actually someone who recognized him? "All of you, retreat." The silhouette indifferently spoke. In an instant, the group of black-armored soldiers all left, causing Fan Lu to heave a sigh of relief. It seemed like Fatty's luck was really good. "You are?" Qin Wendian curiously stared at the mysterious figure. This Fog Illusion City is a forbidden place. Those who enter it can forget about leaving. Naturally, you are an exception. Follow me. The voice of the mysterious figure was still hoarse. After speaking, he turned and walked towards the castle. Qin Wendian and Fan Lu followed behind, their hearts filled with bewilderment. The mysterious man brought them to a comfortable residence. There were even maids here, and they were all quite beautiful. Take good care of them, the mysterious figure instructed the maid. After which, he turned to Qin Wenin and said, "If you wish to leave, just inform the maid. I will arrange for you to leave. But remember, do not reveal this place to anyone else. If not, I can guarantee that you won't live past 3 days." Of course. Fatty grinned. The mysterious figure glanced at Qin Wenin and said, "Your cultivation base has already reached the 9th level of the body refinement realm. You can attempt to break through to the arterial circulation realm." After speaking, the mysterious figure departed, leaving behind a puzzled Qin Wenin. "Who is he?" After the mysterious figure and the maid left, Fan Lu asked Qin Wenin. "How would I know?" Qin Wenin shrugged his shoulders. Even if he racked his brains, he wouldn't be able to figure it out. "Should I sneak away?" Fan Lu murmured in a low voice. However, as the sound of his voice faded, he instantly regretted it. Because, outside, several beauties walked in with food in their hands. Instantly, Fan Li's eyes widened. How could he still remember to sneak away? The beauties placed the food on the table and retreated to the side. Fan Li laughed. "Beautiful sisters, let's eat together." The maids shook their heads, indicating that they didn't dare to. Fan Li felt that it was a pity. Glancing at the food, his eyes widened. Leopard guts, bear's heart, scarlet serpent fruit. Isn't this food a little too good? Fan Lu was stunned. However, this castle was located in the middle of the dark forest. In addition to the strength of these people, they indeed had a natural advantage. What made Fan Lu even more astonished was that after a short while, there were people who delivered a few yuan meteor stones to Qin Wenin, saying that they were for Qin Wenin to break through to the next level. Fan Lu even suspected that Qin Wenin was the young master of this castle. As the saying goes, good brothers are loyal to each other. Fan Lu very generously split the yuan meteor stones evenly between Qin Wenin, worried that Qin Wenin wouldn't be able to use them. Qin Wenin knew that the other party didn't have any ill intentions towards him after seeing the yuan meteor stones given to him. If not, there was no need for him to do such a thing. After which, Qin Wenin began to quietly cultivate. It was indeed necessary for him to break through to the next level. As for Fan Lu, he enjoyed the free food and chatted with the beautiful ladies. His days were spent in bliss. The food here was definitely the best of the royal clan. Even the descendants of the royal clan of Chu wouldn't be able to enjoy such luxuries. Other than the fact that they were treated well, no one had ever come to disturb them before. The night sky was as dark as ink. Qin Wenin sat cross-legged on the ground. The dense fog in the sky had no way to obstruct the astral light that cascaded downwards. At this moment, rumbling sounds could be heard coming from within Qin Wentian's body, as though his entire body was shimmering with a unique light. His body is sparkling and translucent, and the astral light is nourishing his body. This is the pinnacle of the body refinement realm. Fan Lu lazily laid down at the side, observing Qin Wentian's cultivation. This fellow was truly hardworking, immersing himself in his cultivation for the past few days. Puff! A light sound drifted out, causing Fan Li's eyes to narrow. Staring at Qin Wenin, a smile appeared on his face. He's starting to activate his acupoints. Is he trying to break through to the arterial circulation realm? This fellow's cultivation speed is too terrifying. It seems like it's only been a few days since he broke through. Fan Lu murmured in his heart. Although there were external factors such as food and yuan meteor stones, Qin Wentian's cultivation art and astral souls were both extremely tyrannical and extremely suitable for body refinement. The purpose of the body refinement realm was to forge a perfect physique. For those with weak cultivation arts, or the astral energy bestowed by their constellations would be weak, resulting in a poor result in their body refinement. On the other hand, the better the cultivation art, the more tyrannical the astral energy within the body would be, and the faster one's body refinement would be, allowing them to forge a perfect physique within a short period of time. Qin Wenin clearly belonged to the latter category. Tyrannical cultivation arts, tyrannical astral souls. The tyrannical astral energy from the heavenly hammer constellation unceasingly descended upon Qin Wentian's body. Within his body, the boundless astral energy circulated and congregated at the various acupoints, frenziedly breaking through. There were many meridians and acupoints in the human body. To break through to the arterial circulation realm, one needed to activate all the acupoints in the body, allowing the body to store even more yuan energy. After which, one needed to connect all the meridians and acupoints in the body, forming a complete arterial pathway that could connect to every part of the human body, allowing the yuan energy in the body to circulate unimpeded. Through this complete arterial pathway, the yuan energy stored in the 4 limbs and bones of the human body, as well as the acupoints, would be able to connect to the hands, legs, eyes, ears, and other parts of the body. Not only would one's attacks be more powerful, their vision, hearing, and other abilities would also be enhanced. Regardless of whether it was an ordinary wuxiu or a stellar martial cultivator, they would all be able to break through to the arterial circulation realm. As the acupoints were activated one by one, an expression of agony could be seen on Qin Wentian's face. Activating the acupoints was an extremely painful process, but Qin Wentian still gritted his teeth and persevered, causing crisp sounds to resound throughout the silent space. Fan Lu, who was standing at the side, was speechless. This fellow was really going all out, but even so, the corners of his mouth curled up in a smile. Orkan's disdainful gaze, as well as Orphan's frenzied pursuit, were all deeply engraved in Fan Li's mind. Indeed, Qin Wentian had to work hard in his cultivation, so that he could break through as soon as possible and condense his second astral soul. And now, the 1-month time limit for the examination had finally arrived. Early in the morning, the students who had entered the dark forest for the examination walked out one after another. The teachers of the 9 academies were all waiting outside. Those who walked out from the dark forest would become members of their respective academies in the future. Janice and Mustang stood together, while Orkan, Mo Qingqing, and Luo Huan stood beside them. Orphan has come out? Janice smiled when he saw Orphan's silhouette. In the future, Orphan would also join his sect. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flickered with unhappiness. This Orphan had once acted against Qin Wentian in the dark forest. Although she and Mo Qingqing had kept a close watch on Orkan, it was hard to guarantee that Orphan wouldn't seek help from others. After all, the students who participated in the examination came from all over the dark forest, and they didn't know each other very well. The only exception was those from the royal capital. Mo Qingqing glanced at Orphan with a cold gaze, causing Orphan's countenance to stiffen. He lowered his head, not daring to look into Mo Qingqing's eyes. In front of this woman, he couldn't even lift his head, even if he wanted to look at her for a moment longer. Mo Qingqing had been paying attention to the students who exited the dark forest. With regards to the incident that day, she had always felt guilty in her heart. When she saw Qin Wentian chasing after Orphan, she had directly berated Qin Wentian and didn't ask about the details of what had happened. However, even after the sun had set, as the red glow of the setting sun shone upon the dark forest, Qin Wentian still hadn't appeared. Over 300 students from the Emperor Star Academy had already exited the dark forest. Compared to the other academies, the passing rate of the Emperor Star Academy was the highest, but the number of students was still the lowest. However, there were over 100 cities in the Chu country, and in addition to the young geniuses from the other countries, the total number of students from the Chu country seemed insignificant. Orphan, what did you guys do to Qin Wentian? Mo Qingqing's gaze abruptly landed on Orphan, as she coldly asked. I don't know. The dark forest is so vast. Maybe he met some demonic beasts and died. Orphan replied in a flustered tone. A tyrannical aura gushed forth from Mo Qingqing, causing Orphan to hide behind Orkan. Mo Qingqing coldly stated, if something happened to him, and it was done by you, just you wait. After speaking, Mo Qingqing mounted her flying crane and flew away. Luo Huan stared at the departing silhouette of Mo Qingqing, silently musing that since this woman already knew her mistake, she couldn't blame her anymore. Her gaze similarly coldly swept towards Orkan and Orphan. Regarding this matter, I will investigate it thoroughly. Mustang regretted agreeing to his master's suggestion. After all, Qin Wentian's cultivation base was still weak, and he was plotted against by others. If something really happened to him, Mustang wouldn't be able to rest easy. Chapter 41. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed since the examination for the 9 martial academies. The addition of new students increased the vitality of the various academies. Naturally, the Emperor Star Academy was no exception. However, there were some people who couldn't bring themselves to be happy. Luo Huan waited outside the dark forest for 3 days but didn't see Qin Wenyin. Hence, she returned to the Emperor Star Academy. At this moment, she was sitting in a spectator's stand, watching the ranking competition between the new students of the Emperor Star Academy. Every year, the Emperor Star Academy would undergo a ranking competition that lasted for 7 days to determine the strength of the new students. This not only concerned the glory of the students, it also concerned the resources they would be able to enjoy. This was the best method to motivate the students, encouraging them to work harder and become stronger. Only with competition would there be motivation. Today was the first day, and coincidentally, the one standing on the platform was Orphan. Among this batch of new students, Orphan's strength could be considered one of the more powerful ones. After defeating his opponent, he was in high spirits. Upon seeing this scene, Luo Huan's smiling eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. She really liked that sunny big boy. Did he really die in the dark forest? Today, he should also be standing on this stage. Although he wasn't the most dazzling group of people, in the end he would still shine brightly. At the edge of the dark forest, 2 youths walked out. Behind them, there was an adorable snowy puppy. The air here is so fresh. Qin Wenyin gazed at the city in front of him as a smile appeared on his face. At this moment, his demeanor seemed to have changed, and his eyes were even brighter than before. Currently, he had already stimulated all of the astral energy in his body, and at the same time, he had completely opened up his stellar meridians, connecting them to his internal organs and acupoints, allowing him to reach all the major parts of his body. In the body refinement realm, one would be able to refine a perfect physique. After stepping into the arterial circulation realm, one would be able to stimulate all of the astral energy in one's body, allowing one's vision and hearing to become sharper and one's movements to become more agile. Beauties of the royal capital. Here I come. Fatty closed his eyes as he drew in a deep breath. Pooh! Qin Wenyin directly kicked out, causing Fatty to almost fall to the ground. Qin Wenyin, you've gone too far. Fatty placed his hands on his hips and glared at Qin Wenyin. Immediately after, he saw Qin Wenyin turn around and look at him. Instantly, Fatty's aura deflated. Thinking back to the time when Qin Wenyin broke through and he was beaten into a pig's head, he could only curse in a low voice, "You're bullying Fatty too much." As he spoke, the Fatty walked forward. Qin Wentian's lips curled into a faint smile as he followed. He couldn't be blamed for not being able to stand this Fatty. This Fatty was simply too wretched. The night before they left the fantasy city, this Fatty had actually called his servant sister to his room to talk about life. That wasn't all. The crucial point was that when Qin Wenyin returned from his cultivation session, the maidservant looked at him with a pitiful expression. "Young Master Wenyin, you were looking for me?" That was in the middle of the night. At that time, Qin Wenyin had already violently beaten up Fatty. "You can be wretched, but don't you dare use my name to tease beauties." However, thinking back to his experience in the fantasy city, even now, Qin Wenyin was puzzled. Who exactly was the person who knew him? Not only did he not kill him, but he even treated him so well. Arriving at the entrance of the city, Qin Wenyin was preparing to enter. However, he discovered a familiar silhouette outside the city gates. It was none other than Francis. "Master." Francis, who was seated on a large rock, saw Qin Wenyin. His eyes instantly lit up as he jogged over. Seeing that Francis was covered in dust, Qin Wentian's heart warmed. He didn't expect that Francis would be waiting for him here. "Why are you waiting here?" Qin Wentian asked. "Hee, I arrived here 7 days ago, but in the end, I didn't see you among the returning students. Hence, I asked your senior sister, and she also waited for me for 3 days before leaving. I'm fine, so I decided to wait here. In any case, You will definitely pass by this place when you come out. Francis laughed. Oh yes, master, I've already found a safe place. Francis laughed again, as though he had just thought of something joyous. Let's talk while we walk. Qin Wendian replied. Okay. Francis nodded his head as he continued to introduce to Qin Wendian. Among the major powers in the royal capital, there's a superpower named the Divine Weapon Pavilion. This Divine Weapon Pavilion is extremely powerful, and they mainly sell divine weapons. However, they also sell other types of treasures, and it's said that as long as you want to buy something, the Divine Weapon Pavilion would be able to acquire it. Especially when it comes to the variety of divine weapons, the Divine Weapon Pavilion has many weaponsmiths under their command. However, they are different from the Star River Association. They don't accept missions and only sell treasures. Currently, I'm a guest in the Divine Weapon Pavilion. That's right. What price do they pay for you to forge weapons for them? Qin Wendian inquired. Different levels of guest can enjoy different treatments. For example, they can enter the Martial Pavilion to cultivate different cultivation arts and innate techniques. Every month, they will receive a fixed amount of Yuan stones and Yuan meteor stones. For high-level guests, their treatment in the Divine Weapon Pavilion is extremely good, even surpassing that of the Star River Association. Francis continued. An expression of contemplation appeared on Qin Wendian's face. Francis becoming a guest of the Divine Weapon Pavilion was indeed a good choice. He could focus on forging weapons, and at the same time, he could reap some benefits. Not only that, if he wanted to do anything in the future, it would be much more convenient. For example, through Francis, he could obtain Yuan meteor stones for his cultivation. Francis, if you have a second-level divine imprint, would you be able to forge a second-level divine weapon? The comprehension of divine imprints is exceedingly difficult. It's impossible to succeed in a single attempt. Even if I managed to comprehend it, I would have to go through many attempts before I could inscribe it properly. But if I could truly comprehend second-level divine imprints, forging a second-level divine weapon wouldn't be a problem. Right, let's go to the Divine Weapon Pavilion. This time around, I'll be the one inscribing the divine imprint, and we'll work together to forge a divine weapon. After we're done, see if you can get me a few Yuan meteor stones. An expression of contemplation appeared on Qin Wendian's face. Although he had broken through to the arterial circulation realm, he had yet to open an astral gate. Opening an astral gate required the support of an immense amount of astral energy, and since he hadn't succeeded a few days ago, he might still need the help of Yuan meteor stones. Not only that, the tiny astral being in his sea of consciousness also required an immense amount of astral energy to be activated. If he were to rely on the astral energy within his body to replenish his energy, it would be too slow. If I'm able to forge a second-level divine weapon, Yuan meteor stones shouldn't be a problem. Francis had a joyful expression on his face. The population of the royal capital was extremely high, and many of the wuxios were extremely thirsty for a divine weapon. This was especially so for those adventurers. With a divine weapon in their hands, they would be able to save their lives in crucial moments. Why didn't I see anyone using a divine weapon in the dark forest? Qin Wendian asked Fan Lu. Fan Lu had been listening at the side, silently cursing this freak in his heart. To think that this freak even knew divine imprints. Divine imprints were extremely profound and required a lot of time. Most people wouldn't be willing to waste too much time on it. How can a student bring a divine weapon with them during the examination? Do you think the teachers of the academy are all fools? Fatty cast a disdainful glance at Qin Wendian. That's true. Qin Wendian shrugged his shoulders as he laughed. Currently, as he walked along the streets, he saw many people carrying weapons. The Divine Weapon Pavilion was located in the 4th district of the royal capital. There were many powerful clans here, and even the Star River Association was located in this district. The roads here were extremely wide, and the buildings here were majestic. That should be the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Francis pointed to a gigantic building complex in front of them. It exuded an imposing aura, and there were many people entering and exiting it. This was one of the most popular places for the rich and powerful in the royal capital. Master, do you want to go in and take a look? Francis asked. There's no need for that. Just take me to the place where you forge weapons and start forging them. Qin Wendian replied. He still wanted to open his astral gate as soon as possible and condense his second astral soul. After that, he would go to the Emperor Star Academy and thank those people for their special care. Those people wanted him dead so badly. This time around he would have to disappoint them. He was destined to enter the Emperor Star Academy. Naturally, before that, he still needed to condense his second astral soul and raise his strength. After all, the Emperor Star Academy was a place where experts were as common as the clouds. Francis led Qin Wendian around the main building area of the Divine Weapon Pavilion and entered the inner courtyard of the Divine Weapon Pavilion from the side. The prosperity of the Divine Weapon Pavilion was all supported by the operations of the inner courtyard. Just like in the Star River Association, as a guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Francis had his own weaponsmithing hall. Not only that, he had 2 apprentices to assist him in forging weapons. There were many types of weapon embryos and materials here, and the temperature of the flames in the furnace could be adjusted. The environment here was in no way inferior to that of the Star River Association. Master, what type of divine weapon do you want to forge? Walking to the place where the embryos were placed, Francis asked. You choose what you are most proficient in. I've comprehended a type of second-level divine imprint, which is suitable for any type of divine weapon. If there are no problems on your side, this second-level divine imprint should be able to forge a second-level divine weapon. In that case, let's forge a bow. Fan Lu suddenly interjected from the side. Qin Wendian rolled his eyes, ignoring his words. A bow was one of the hardest divine weapons to inscribe. It was long, thin, curved, and extremely difficult to inscribe the divine imprint. In the end, Francis chose the embryos of a sword and prepared to forge a sword. After carefully selecting the materials, Francis began to smelt the bow. As for Qin Wendian, he sat down and quietly comprehended the second-level divine imprint. It was an extremely complicated combination of divine imprints. Qin Wendian meticulously analyzed the divine imprint in his memory and used his astral energy to imitate it in his arterial pathways. Chapter 42. The main hall of the Divine Weapon Pavilion was majestic and majestic. Resplendent lights illuminated the entire hall, and on the various counters, there were all sorts of divine weapons and treasures. The main hall of the Divine Weapon Pavilion was extremely spacious and had 3 levels. On average, there were tens of thousands of people entering and exiting it every day. At this moment, outside the main hall of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, a young man clad in white robes stepped in. In his hands was a flask of wine, and his body exuded the smell of alcohol. Immortal drunken wine, are you here to look for treasures again? Do you want to come and take a look? Immortal drunken wine, come, let me see how many mouthfuls of wine are left in your flask. The moment the young man stepped into the Divine Weapon Pavilion, there were already people laughing and joking with him. Evidently, he was a frequent customer. If someone wants to invite me for a drink, look for me again. The young man revealed a smile as he walked towards the second level of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Laughter rang out from the crowd as many people sighed inwardly. A talented and amiable young man like Immortal Drunken Wine was truly too rare nowadays. Immortal Drunken Wine was one of the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. His talent was extremely high, and his swordsmanship was astonishing. Although he rarely used his sword, everyone in the royal capital knew of him. Immortal Drunken Wine's swordsmanship was as good as his alcohol tolerance. It was said that there were people who saw him dancing with his sword when he was drunk, resembling an immortal. As for his real name, not many people remembered it. Immortal Drunken Wine had another hobby, which was to collect swords. Hence, he often came to the Divine Weapon Pavilion. On the second level of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Immortal Drunken Wine walked straight to the place where swords were sold. On the wall, there were all sorts of sword hilts. You want to see the new ones, right? A beautiful maid stood in front of the wall and smiled at Immortal Drunken Wine. After which, she took down a few swords from the wall and passed them to Wine Sword Immortal. These are all newly forged swords, and they are all second-level mid-grade and high-grade. Immortal Drunken Wine looked at them one by one and smiled. I'll come again next time. The maid seemed to be used to this and didn't try to persuade him. At this moment, a sword apprentice brought 3 swords over and said, Sister Jianwu, these are the newly forged divine weapons. Take them. Jianwu took a look and infused her elemental energy into them. She then raised her head and looked at Wine Sword Immortal. These 3 swords are all second-level swords, but they aren't as good as the previous ones. Let me see. Wine Sword Immortal drank a mouthful of wine and received the 3 swords. Testing them one by one, he shook his head and pointed at the seemingly ordinary sword on the left. What's the price for this sword? A second-level low-grade sword. If you want it, you can have it for a second-layer Yuan Meteor Stone. Jianwu smiled. As for the second-layer Yuan Meteor Stone she was referring to, it was naturally the standard Yuan Meteor Stone. Yuan Meteor Stones were used for cultivation purposes, and could even aid stellar martial cultivators in forming an innate connection with their constellations. In the Tianwu continent, Yuan Meteor Stones were considered a high-grade currency. They were meteorites that fell from the heavens, and these meteorites were naturally irregularly dropped. Sometimes, a complete Yuan Meteor Stone would be equivalent to an incomparably valuable star ore, and after being polished and cut into pieces, they would be made into the standard size of Yuan Meteor Stones. Yuan stones, which contain the Yuan energy of heaven and earth, could also be used as currency. However, it was a low-grade currency. Those who came to the Divine Weapon Pavilion were all wealthy people, and their currency of exchange was usually Yuan Meteor Stones. Okay, I'll take it. Immortal Drunken Wine laughed, as he took out a Yuan Meteor Stone and handed it over to Jianwu. This caused Jianwu to be stunned. She had thought that Immortal Drunken Wine had casually said this, and hence, she had casually replied. However, the price of a second-layer Yuan Meteor Stone was definitely not low, and yet, Immortal Drunken Wine had directly snatched it away. This caused her to feel that something was amiss. Immortal Drunken Wine, what did you take advantage of this time? Let me take a look. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked over. He was none other than the supervisor elder of the second level of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Ulchen, take a look. Immortal Drunken Wine tossed the sword over to the supervisor elder, Yang Chen. Yang Chen received the sword and infused the astral energy in his body into it. Gradually, his countenance became extremely fascinating. Looking at Jianwu, he asked, "Who sent this over?" "It was Francis, a guest elder, who asked me to send it over. He wanted me to sell it directly, as he urgently needs Yuan Meteor Stones." The swordsman replied. After selling the weapons forged by guest elders, there would be a cut of the profits. Immortal Drunken Wine, consider yourself ruthless. Yang Chen glared at Jianwu as he turned and left, intending to look for Francis. "I'll follow you to take a look." Immortal Drunken Wine laughed as he followed Yang Chen to the backyard of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, where Francis was located. Francis obviously didn't expect that Yang Chen would come. As the supervisor elder of the second level of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Yang Chen's status was extraordinary, far beyond what Francis could compare to. "Francis, were you the one who inscribed the divine imprints on this sword?" Yang Chen pointed to the sword in Immortal Drunken Wine's hand as he asked. Francis's eyes flickered as he replied, "Yes, my master did." "Can you allow me to meet with your master?" Yang Chen smiled. "I'll ask my master," Francis replied, as he entered the forging hall to seek Qin Wentian's opinion. A moment later, Yang Chen saw 2 youths walking out, and he couldn't help but be startled. "Elder Yang Chen, this is my master, Qin Wenyan," Francis introduced. "Good, young geniuses. Grandmaster Qin, my name is Yang Chen. How about we change locations to chat?" Yang Chen looked at Qin Wentian, and Qin Wentian nodded his head. He didn't expect that the divine imprint he inscribed would attract the attention of an elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. It seemed like his guess was right. The value of the divine imprint was extraordinary. The group of them arrived at a pavilion by the lake in the inner courtyard of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. The scenery here was exquisite. "Immortal Drunken Wine, why are you still here?" Yang Chen glared at Immortal Drunken Wine. Those who can forge the sword I like are my friends. Naturally, I'm here to befriend them. Immortal Drunken Wine's breath reeked of alcohol. Do you want a sip? Immortal Drunken Wine raised his wine gourd, as he pointed it at Qin Wenyin. This fellow is an interesting person. Qin Wenyin laughed as he shook his head. Grandmaster Qin, there are still some flaws in this divine imprint. Yang Chen glanced at Qin Wenyin, as he started to talk business. It's not a flaw, it's just that I have yet to fully comprehend it. Hence, there are still some flaws in it. Qin Wenyin replied. Can you sell this divine imprint to my divine weapon pavilion? You can name the price. Yang Chen finally stated his purpose. Qin Wenyin stared at him, as he smiled and shook his head. Giving it to Yang Chen in one go, if Yang Chen allowed the weaponsmiths of the divine weapon pavilion to comprehend it, his divine imprint would no longer be worth anything. Since this is the case, are you willing to become a guest of my divine weapon pavilion? I can help you apply for special privileges. Yang Chen continued. I don't have time to stay in the divine weapon pavilion. It's the same for Francis. Qin Wenyin stared at Yang Chen, his words causing Yang Chen to furrow his brows. After which, Qin Wenyin spoke. If Elder Yang has nothing else to say, I'll take my leave first. Grandmaster Qin, please wait a moment. Yang Chen blocked Qin Wentian's path, as he retrieved a few Yuan meteor stones. The astral light within them was concentrated, and contained a vast amount of astral energy. These were all Yuan meteor stones originating from the second heavenly layer. Grandmaster Qin, don't be in such a hurry to reject me. Consider this as the price I have to pay for that sword. Yang Chen pointed to the sword in Immortal Drunken Wine's hand. Qin Wendian stared at the Yuan meteor stones. Although he was extremely agitated in his heart, he still endured it. The people of the Divine Weapon Pavilion were truly rich. Back then in the Qin clan, even a single Yuan meteor stone was considered a treasure. The Qin clan was simply too poor, and their resources were constantly being depleted. Fan Lu, who was standing at the side, narrowed his eyes, as a brilliant light flashed in his eyes. This time around he was going to be rich. In the future, when Grandmaster Qin creates divine weapons, can you hand them over to my divine weapon pavilion for sale? My divine weapon pavilion will pay half of the selling price to Grandmaster Qin. Naturally, the forging materials will also be provided by my divine weapon pavilion. In addition, if Grandmaster Qin is unwilling to become a guest elder, I can raise Francis's rank, allowing him to enjoy the resources of the divine weapon pavilion. Yang Chen's words finally caused Qin Wentian's heart to waver. For the same item, if he were to sell it to the divine weapon pavilion, the difference in rewards would be like the difference between the heavens and the earth. The divine weapon pavilion would provide a huge platform for Grandmaster Qin. Not only that, the forging materials would also be provided by the divine weapon pavilion. The divine weapon pavilion's proposal of cooperation was already a sign of their sincerity. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to forge divine weapons frequently. Qin Wendian stared at Yang Chen. The rarer something is, the greater its value. In the future, when Grandmaster Qin creates more masterpieces, I will sell them in the form of auctions. Of course, we will not dare to set a limit on how many divine weapons Grandmaster Qin needs to forge. Grandmaster Qin can do whatever he wants, Yang Chen stated. I agree. A youthful smile blossomed on Qin Wentian's face. This scene caused Yang Chen to be stunned. Since this is the case, I won't stand on ceremony with these Yuan meteor stones. A glint of light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes, as he unceremoniously kept the Yuan meteor stones. Boss, what about mine? Fatty's eyes shone brightly as he stared at Qin Wenyin, directly calling him boss. Qin Wenyin cast a look of disdain at Fatty, but he still gave him a Yuan meteor stone. Fatty had a pitiful expression on his face as he stared at the other Yuan meteor stones in Qin Wentian's hands. However, he was ignored by Qin Wenyin. Grandmaster Qin, in the future when you're free, come to the Divine Weapon Pavilion often. I will arrange a residence and a forging hall for Francis. If there's anything you need help with, Grandmaster Qin can look for me directly. Yang Chen stood up and laughed. These two little fellows were too interesting. No problem. Qin Wendian laughed. After which, Yang Chen bade farewell. Immortal drunken wine stared at Qin Wendian as he laughed. Come and look for me when you feel like drinking. After Yang Chen and Immortal Drunken Wine left, Qin Wendian stared at the Yuan meteor stones in his hands as a smile broke out on his face. Now, he could finally open the astral gate. Grandpa Qin, father. Qin Wendian silently called out in his heart. He hadn't forgotten that his Grandpa Qin and Father Qin were still imprisoned. Chapter 43. Very quickly, Yang Chen fulfilled his promise and made an exception to raise Francis's status as a guest elder. At the same time, Yang Chen bestowed upon Francis a large courtyard with an elegant pavilion, a pond and a pavilion, as well as a weaponsmithing hall that was even more abundant in resources. Francis was even provided with maids to take care of his daily needs. Naturally, Francis understood that all of this was because of Qin Wendian, which was why he could enjoy such treatment. At the start, Francis still had some doubts. However, when Qin Wendian taught him the second-level divine imprint, allowing him to slowly comprehend it, he finally understood why Yang Chen was so courteous. The value of the second-level divine imprint was definitely worth such treatment. Qin Wendian and Francis then worked together to forge a few more divine weapons. One of them was a set of second-level divine weapons that were specially made for Fan Lu. The arm guard on the wrist, as well as the sleeves of the arm guard, were made with extremely light materials. This way, Fan Lu could easily carry it on his arm, as though it was a piece of clothing. This was in consideration of the fact that Fan Li's close combat capabilities were at a disadvantage, and was specially made for him. This caused Fatty to be extremely excited, as he silently mused that if he followed a weaponsmith, he wouldn't have to worry about treasures. Even the way he addressed Qin Wendian became more intimate, calling him boss. After settling everything, Qin Wendian prepared to open the astral gate. Night, the astral light from the 9 heavenly layers cascaded downwards, illuminating the darkness. Qin Wendian's entire person was bathed in the astral light. The astral light from the heavenly hammer constellation from the 5th heavenly layer descended upon Qin Wendian, flowing into his body. At the same time, Yuan meteor stones were held in both of his hands. The surging astral energy flowed into his body through his stellar meridians, transforming into a terrifying astral whirlpool that rushed towards the location of the astral gate in his sea of consciousness. Everyone was born with an astral gate, but if one wanted to open a second astral gate, they had to first open their arterial circulation pathway, and then use the surging astral energy to open the second astral gate. This process required the support of a terrifying amount of astral energy. From this, one could see that cultivation required a huge amount of resources. Hence, some of the descendants of the rich and powerful had an advantage in their cultivation because they had more resources. Qin Wendian's mind kept shaking. The process was still very painful. Cultivation was a painful thing, but after the pain, you would be given the corresponding strength. Those who did not have great perseverance would not be able to step onto the path of the strong. Fatty had gone off to research his arm guard, while Francis was immersed in his comprehension of the divine inscriptions. Only Little Rascal was squatting by Qin Wendian's side. The night was as deep as water, and Qin Wendian's entire body was enveloped in a layer of astral light, unceasingly enduring the impact. The astral energy within the 2 Yuan meteor stones in his hands was almost depleted. Finally, when the sun was about to rise at the end of the stellar meridians within Qin Wendian's sea of consciousness, a thunderous rumbling sound rang out as a second astral gate appeared. As the second astral gate appeared, Qin Wendian's body softly slumped onto the ground as a smile appeared on his face. Since the astral gate had been formed, condensing an astral soul wouldn't be too much of a problem for him. 2 second heavenly layer Yuan meteor stones. Cultivation is truly a waste of resources. Qin Wendian mumbled with a smile on his face. Little Rascal hopped onto his chest and stuck out its tongue, appearing exceptionally adorable. Little Rascal, I'll bring you to see Senior Sister Luo Huan soon. Qin Wendian patted Little Rascal's head as a smile appeared on his face. The Emperor Star Academy was truly something to look forward to. How was Senior Sister Luo Huan? And also Orphan, he would never forget the grace he received from the two pursuers. Qin Wenyin once again thought of that breathtaking countenance of Mo Qingqing, the number one beauty in Chu. With regards to beauties, all men would naturally have a favorable impression of her, and Qin Wenyin was no exception. However, after that cold scolding from Mo Qingqing, it caused the favorable impression he had of her to vanish into nothingness. During the day, Qin Wenyin cultivated the innate technique of the dragon subduing fist. There were only 3 stances to the dragon subduing fist, but the innate technique was indeed a set of innate techniques. When one fought, one would be akin to an enraged dragon, roaring unceasingly, exuding a majestic aura. During the night, Qin Wenyin started to condense an astral soul. He didn't plan to succeed in a single attempt, but rather, he wanted to observe it first. His perception extended to the 9 heavenly layers. The boundless astral river was as resplendent as silver, with stars of various shapes and colors intertwining with each other, forming an incomparably resplendent picture. Right now, Qin Wenyan's perception could already easily soar through the first 2 heavenly layers. When he reached the 3rd heavenly layer, he would feel a sense of pressure. The pressure from the 4th heavenly layer was even stronger, and the 5th heavenly layer was still a headache for him. He tried again and again, seeking a breakthrough, allowing himself to remain in the 5th heavenly layer for a longer period of time. After a few days, Qin Wenyan's perception gradually adapted to the pressure, allowing him to endure for a longer period of time. Tonight, 9 silver needles pierced into 9 different acupoints in Qin Wenyan's sea of consciousness, sealing his 6 senses, allowing him to focus without any distractions. His perception was unprecedentedly focused, and very quickly he visualized a pathway of astral light and hypnotized himself. His perception flowed along the astral light, heading towards the heavenly layers, and slowly he arrived at the resplendent astral river. This time around, Qin Wenyan's perception didn't stop, and directly headed towards the 5th heavenly layer. The immense pressure caused him to feel suffocated, as though his perception was about to shatter. He knew that the current him was still insufficient to condense an astral soul from the 6th heavenly layer, and could only choose from the 5th heavenly layer. The Berserk Ape constellation, condensing an astral soul from the Berserk Ape constellation, would grant one with terrifying strength and defense. The Lightning Transcendent constellation was condensed from an astral soul of the Lightning Reverend, and had the ability to control lightning and thunder. Qin Wenyan's perception rapidly floated about. He saw a constellation the size of a giant, exuding a fearsome aura of thunder and lightning. This caused him to have the urge to form an innate link with it. As long as he could form an innate link with this constellation, the astral energy in his body would be imbued with the tyrannical aura of thunder and lightning, tempering his body with the power of thunder and lightning. The higher the level of the astral river, not only would the astral souls contain greater amounts of energy, there would also be some extraordinary astral souls. Suppressing the urge to form a connection with the Lightning Singer's constellation, Qin Wenyan continued his search. His perception detected a strange constellation. This constellation seemed to be the silhouette of a person in slumber. With just a single glance, before Qin Wenyan's perception could even connect to it, he felt a sense of drowsiness. After which, his perception was no longer under his control, as though he had fallen into a deep slumber. Sleeping astral soul. An idea appeared in Qin Wenyan's mind. After which, his perception also entered a dreamlike state, completely involuntarily. In his dreams, his perception drifted towards the dreamlike constellation. In his dreams, he condensed his dreamlike astral soul, and in his dreams, he began to absorb the astral energy from the dreamlike constellation. This was an extremely long dream, or rather, it wasn't a dream. To Qin Wenyin, this was reality. In his dreams, he began to use Yuan meteor stones to communicate with the tiny astral being in his sea of consciousness. The tiny astral being greedily absorbed the astral energy, as though there was no end to it. Beside the tiny astral being, there were 2 astral gates, each of which was occupied by an astral soul. Finally, Qin Wenyan's perception was sucked into the tiny astral being. This time around, Qin Wenyan didn't absorb the astral being's memories. Instead, he saw a magnificent scene. He saw an incomparably majestic sect. This sect seemed to be situated on top of a sacred mountain, towering into the skies, exuding a majestic aura, as though it wanted to contend against the heavens and earth. Qin Heavenly Divine Sect. In the airspace above the majestic sect, four gigantic words were inscribed on 4 stone pillars that pierced through the clouds. The words were filled with a tyrannical aura, and one could see how powerful the person who inscribed these words was. In front of this majestic sect, a group of experts appeared, standing proudly in the air. Resplendent halos radiated from their bodies, and their astral souls were something he had never seen before. In fact, their astral souls had already transformed into terrifying astral soul constellations, as though the entire world was their astral soul constellations. The impact of this scene to Qin Wenyan was immense. He could feel how tiny and inconsequential he was. However, this group of terrifying experts was currently surrounding a middle-aged man. This middle-aged man's black hair danced wildly in the wind, his eyes gleaming with high spirits. Facing these experts, he exuded the aura of a monarch descending from the heavens. His entire body was enveloped by a resplendent light, as though he was the ruler of this world. Abruptly, the entire world transformed into a world of constellations. The middle-aged man, who was enveloped by the constellations, radiated boundless divine light. His palms trembled in the air, and with a single palm strike, the heavens and earth seemed to open up. The constellations in the sky crumbled apart as the middle-aged man punched out once more, containing a supreme might within. After which, Qin Wenyan saw that the experts surrounding the middle-aged man all had looks of terror on their faces as their bodies directly crumbled apart, transforming into dust. How terrifying! That palm strike was akin to the might of the heavens, capable of destroying the constellations in the sky and wiping away all life. Qin Wenyan couldn't sense how terrifying that aura was. He could only use his consciousness to observe, but even so, he could still see the chaotic currents of chaos destroying everything. But at this moment, an intense surge of chaotic currents of consciousness appeared, causing the scene before him to twist and distort before vanishing. Qin Wenyan only felt his consciousness returning to the tiny astral being's world as memory fragments frenziedly flowed into his mind. After which, everything in front of him turned blurry as Qin Wenyan's consciousness was ejected from the tiny astral being. Ooh! Qin Wenyan breathed heavily. When he opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the wretched countenance of Fatty. "What are you doing?" Qin Wenyan's body trembled. Fatty grinned at him before moving his head away from Qin Wenyan. Only now did Qin Wenyan discover that he was still lying on the ground. "Qin Wenyan, you can really sleep. You slept for 3 whole days." Fatty inclined his head and stared at the sky as he spoke in a depressed tone. What made him even more depressed was that when Qin Wenyan was sleeping, there were 9 silver needles inserted into his head. At the same time, the astral light from the 9 heavenly layers cascaded downwards. Not only that, even though he was beside Qin Wenyan, he also felt like sleeping. Little rascal had already fallen asleep beside Qin Wenyan. Chapter 44. Qin Wenyan was dumbfounded. This sleep lasted for 3 days? Astral soul. Qin Wenyan closed his eyes, and in his sea of consciousness, 2 astral gates opened up. The Heavenly Hammer Astral Soul and Great Dream Astral Soul sat within the astral gates, and beside them was the dimmed tiny astral being. Memories, there really are new memories. My head hurts. Qin Wenyan shook his head, as more and more memories appeared in his sea of consciousness, as he slowly digested them. Heavenly Dipper Realm Cultivation Art, Dreamcast Art. This art can support me all the way to the Heavenly Dipper Realm. The Dreamcast art can be divided into 3 levels: Shallow Dream State, Immersed Dream State, and Forgotten Dream State. The Shallow Dream State is the slowest, and allows one to enter a simple state of slumber for cultivation. The Immersed Dream State allows one to enter a deep sleep state for cultivation, increasing the speed of cultivation. One can even create dreams, allowing others to enter the dreamscape. The Forgotten Dream State allows one to create dreams, allowing one to live in the dreamscape. One can even control life and death in the dreamscape. Qin Wenin gradually read through these memories as his heart trembled. When he condensed his first astral soul, he was bestowed with the tempered thousand hammer refinement art, which was extremely suitable for cultivation in the body refinement realm. Now that he had condensed his second astral soul, the Dreamcast art appeared in his memories. Similarly, this cultivation art was completely compatible with his astral soul, as though the tiny astral being was purposefully transmitting these memories to him. And this time around, not only were there the memories of the Dreamcast art, there was also another vast set of memories, the Spirit Refinement Method. The Spirit Refinement Method was also a set of cultivation arts, but it wasn't a cultivation art used to raise one's cultivation level, but rather, it was an extremely fearsome cultivation art used to condense astral energy. According to the information in the vast set of memories, the first level of the Spirit Refinement Method required one to use first-level divine imprints to condense astral energy, transforming it into divine yuan energy. Using divine imprints to condense astral energy, Qin Wenin would never have dared to imagine that such a fearsome cultivation art existed. Divine imprints were considered supreme treasures in the world of weaponsmiths. A first-level divine imprint could be used to forge divine weapons. For example, a first-level flying sword divine imprint could be inscribed onto a weapon, granting it an aura of sharpness and amplifying its strength. For example, if the astral energy in one's body was condensed from first-level divine imprints, then when the boundless true yuan was released at the same time, it would be equivalent to many first-level divine imprints exploding at the same time. If he were to use the power of his innate abilities to release these divine inscriptions, how terrifying would that be? Just imagining it made one's blood boil. However, the Spirit Refinement Method was extremely difficult to cultivate. If one wanted to condense astral energy into divine imprints, not only would one need to expend a vast amount of astral energy, one would also need to have a high level of comprehension towards divine imprints. Not only that, this method of condensing divine energy would definitely be extremely time-consuming. Another point was that when stellar martial cultivators cultivated, they would need to expend their true yuan energy in combat. This meant that the divine yuan energy that they had spent a long time to condense would be depleted in the event of a battle. One could imagine, if one wanted to cultivate the Spirit Refinement Method, they would need a huge amount of yuan meteor stones as well as a lot of time to support themselves. Only then would they be able to persist until they could condense the first level of divine yuan energy in an instant. Phew! Qin Wenin slowly digested these memories and took a deep breath. Difficult, this Spirit Refinement Method was too difficult. The Dreamcast art could increase one's cultivation speed, but the Spirit Refinement Method could slow down one's cultivation speed to its slowest. That arrogant middle-aged man from the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect, he must have cultivated the Spirit Refinement Method. Qin Wenin silently mused as he recalled the shocking scene in the video. Also, why would the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect appear in the tiny astral being? What relationship did that middle-aged man have with him? Old fogey, what secret did you leave behind? Qin Wenin really wanted to ask Uncle Black about it. Sadly, after the incident at the Qin residence, Sister Yao said that Uncle Black had disappeared. Fan Lu waved his hand in front of Qin Wentian's eyes, causing Qin Wenin to glare at him. "Are you sick?" Fatty asked with a straight face. This guy couldn't have slept so much that he became stupid, right? Qin Wentian's brows twitched as a smile appeared on his face. Momentarily, Fatty shivered as he retreated 2 steps back. "Boss, I'm just worried that something might have happened to you. I don't mean anything else." Evidently, Fatty still had a lingering fear in his heart from the beating he received previously. "How about we return to the Emperor Star Academy tomorrow?" Qin Wenin asked Fatty. Fatty's eyes brightened as a wretched smile appeared on his face. He winked at Qin Wenin, his meaning clear. Was he finally going to the Emperor Star Academy? He was filled with anticipation. Qin Wenin had already broken through to the arterial circulation realm. With his berserk astral soul, it shouldn't be a problem for him to deal with Orphan. As he thought of this, a cold glint of light flashed in Fatty's eyes. At this moment, Francis walked over with a smile on his face. "What's the matter?" Qin Wendian asked Francis. "Good news. Today, the Divine Weapon Pavilion auctioned off a divine weapon forged by Master. Because of the publicity, it attracted many people from the royal capital. Not only that, there were some powerful characters who tried to probe the divine weapon and discovered that not only did the divine weapon possess an amplification effect, it could also store true yuan within a short period of time. Many people participated in the auction. Can you guess how much this second-level divine weapon was sold for?" Francis was extremely excited. He was indeed very happy. It seemed like he didn't follow the wrong person. If he continued to stay in the Star River Association, unless he was angered by Murin, he wouldn't be able to do anything for the rest of his life. "What's the price?" Qin Wenyin was extremely curious. 15-second level yuan meteor stones? Francis laughed. For an ordinary second-level divine weapon, 1 yuan meteor stone is sufficient. Not only that, this is the first auction and it has already caused such a huge commotion. After this auction, it will definitely attract even more people, including some weaponsmiths who wish to research divine imprints. Qin Wendian laughed. If he was the one selling the divine weapons, it would definitely not have such an effect. In the future, when his comprehension towards divine imprints deepened, he would be able to inscribe even higher quality divine weapons, and the yuan meteor stones he obtained would be sufficient to support him in his cultivation of the spiritual refinement method. "Master, these are the yuan meteor stones. The divine weapon pavilion gave me 8 of them." Francis smiled as he passed the yuan meteor stones to Qin Wendian. Keep these 2 for yourself. In the future when I'm free, I will come here again to forge divine weapons. You should also focus on comprehending the divine imprints, and don't neglect your cultivation." Qin Wendian left 2 yuan meteor stones for Francis. "Many thanks, Master. You can go now." Qin Wendian dismissed Francis as he continued his cultivation of the dragon-subduing fist, and at the same time, slowly comprehending the spiritual refinement method as well as the dreamcast art. The spiritual refinement method wasn't something that could be completed in a single day. However, Qin Wenyin was able to enter the first level of the dreamcast art, the shallow dreamscape. That night, he cultivated in his sleep. On top of 2 constellations in the 5th heavenly layer, the astral light from the constellations cascaded down onto the sleeping Qin Wenyin. Cultivating in his sleep caused Fatty to be dumbfounded. One could really cultivate in their sleep? Fatty was so envious. Early the next morning, Qin Wendian and Fan Lu bade farewell to Francis, borrowed 2 horses, and after asking for directions, they set off towards the Emperor's Star Academy. Upon arriving at the Emperor's Star Academy, Qin Wendian discovered that there were many people like them, who were all heading towards the entrance of the Emperor's Star Academy. "Why is it so lively?" Qin Wendian curiously asked. "Could it be because they knew that I would return?" Fan Lu grinned. Qin Wendian rolled his eyes. He was still thinking about how to enter the Emperor's Star Academy and contact Senior Sister Luo Huan to obtain the Emperor's Star Jade Medallion. Who would have thought that the Emperor's Star Academy would open its doors today? "Which academy are you guys from?" A young lady with braids smiled at Qin Wendian as she asked. "Emperor's Star Academy. What about you?" Qin Wendian replied. "Students from the Emperor's Star Academy, you're really awesome. I'm currently cultivating in the Scarlet Flame Martial Palace. Today is the last day of the ranking battle, and since the Emperor's Star Academy didn't forbid the other academies from participating in the Emperor's Star Academy's ranking battle, I wanted to personally witness the strength of the outstanding students from the Emperor's Star Academy to motivate myself. I should still be able to make it in time for the battles." The young lady smiled as she continued, "It's rare for me to come here, so I have to hurry up and take a look. I'll take my leave first." After which, the young lady quickened her steps as she waved her hands at the 2 of them. Qin Wenyin and Fan Lu exchanged glances as smiles broke out on their faces. The 2 of them quickly followed the crowd, and not long after, they arrived at the central training grounds of the Emperor's Star Academy. Many people were gathered together, spectating the battles taking place on the training grounds. Murong Feng, the undisputed top ranker of this batch of students from the Emperor's Star Academy. His talent is comparable to the 10 prodigies of the royal capital, and he's already at the 4th level of the arterial circulation realm at the age of 16. Not only that, he also condensed 2 astral souls. His potential is extremely high. On the platform, a silhouette of a youthful youth appeared. After defeating his opponent with a single strike, he appeared incomparably calm. To him, this was merely a formality. The #1 academy in the Chu country is the cradle of geniuses. Every year, there would be geniuses with great potential. Other than Murong Feng, Lin Xiu and Du Hao are both at the 3rd level of the arterial circulation realm. Not only that, there are also 3 at the 2nd level of the arterial circulation realm. This batch of students is much stronger compared to the previous batch. The crowd discussed, causing Qin Wenyan to silently muse that the Emperor Star Academy was indeed a place of many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. TSKSK, it seems like I, the #1 genius, still have to work hard to prove myself. Fan Lu laughed in a low voice as he glanced at Qin Wenyan beside him. Don't worry, your first astral soul was condensed from an astral soul from the 3rd heavenly layer. You should be the same as this genius, not cultivating the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth. You only started cultivating after you awakened your astral soul. That's why you started so late. Orphan went up. Qin Wenyan didn't bother with Fan Li's words. His eyes flickered with a cold light as he stared at the silhouette of Orphan. He almost killed us, right? Fan Lu narrowed his eyes as he asked. Qin Wenyan nodded his head. Do something big? Fan Li's eyes narrowed into slits. What do you want to do? Qin Wenyan asked. Do it to death. Fan Lu grinned. Qin Wenyan nodded his head. The two of them exchanged glances as radiant smiles appeared on their faces. Chapter 45. Orphan's strength was definitely ranked within the top 10 in this batch of students. For this batch of students, Murong Feng was at the 4th level of arterial circulation, Lin Xiu and Du Hao were at the 3rd level, and the remaining 3 were at the 2nd level. One of them was Orphan. For this round, Orphan's opponent was at the 1st level of arterial circulation. Due to the disparity in their strength, Orphan's frenzied serpent spear technique quickly defeated his opponent. Upon witnessing this scene, Janus had a faint smile on his face as he stated, Orphan's spear technique has the agility of a serpent, as well as the tyranny of a python. He has already comprehended the essence of this innate technique. After this battle, he will definitely be ranked within the top 10. Right? Orphan didn't disappoint me. Orkhan, who was at the side, indifferently nodded his head. Everything was within his expectations. On the other side, Mustang's countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. This was because they had different standpoints. In the Emperor Star Academy, he and Janus had always been in opposition to each other. Their students were the same as well, and for every batch of new students, he, Janus, and a few other teachers would choose their students. More accurately speaking, it was the students who chose their teachers. Orphan was obviously a student under Janus's faction, and he, Mustang, originally had high hopes for Qin Wenyan. But now, Qin Wenyan had already been missing for more than 10 days. No matter how I look at this Orphan, I still feel uncomfortable. Junior brother Qin is more honest and more pleasing to the eye. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes stared at the complacent Orphan on the platform, her countenance somewhat unsightly. Orphan, who was on the platform, turned and prepared to leave. However, at this moment, a voice abruptly rang out. Powerful, truly powerful. A teasing voice rang out, and the spectators saw a fat silhouette walking up the platform. Upon seeing this fatty, Orphan's eyes instantly narrowed, as a cold light flickered within. How was this possible? He was actually still alive. Why you here? Orphan spat out in a low voice. After stepping into the illusionary city, he was actually able to walk out? Why wouldn't I appear? Fan Lu laughed as he looked at Orphan. Momentarily, Orphan seemed to have realized something, and immediately shut his mouth, as though he didn't know who Fan Lu was. Long time no see. Another voice drifted over, and Orphan saw a familiar silhouette. Qin Wenyan? Junior brother Qin. Mountain, who was in the spectator stands, saw Qin Wenyan standing up with a simple and honest smile on his face. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes also flashed with a strange light as she laughed in a low voice. I knew you wouldn't die so easily. A white silhouette flickered and instantly leapt into Luo Huan's embrace. Under the gazes of countless envious gazes, little rascal's body lay on top of Luo Huan's softness, causing countless people to be filled with envy. When Mustang saw Qin Wenyan, he heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. This fellow actually dared to directly walk up to the arena. The spectators all had puzzled expressions on their faces when they saw Qin Wenyan and Fan Le. Who were these two who had suddenly appeared? Qin Wenyan and Fan Le slowly walked towards Orphan. Orphan retreated repeatedly, as though he was extremely afraid of the two of them. After all, he had personally witnessed what Fan Lu and Qin Wenyan had done in the dark forest. Mui had been pierced to death by an arrow in the air. Impudent! Or you! How dare you cause trouble here? Janus abruptly shouted, his gaze sweeping over to Qin Wenyan and Fan Lu. At this moment, it was as though he didn't know Qin Wenyan at all. A student from the Emperor Star Academy, Qin Wenyan's. A student from the Emperor Star Academy, Fan Lu. Is that so? Why did you only appear today? Janus sneered. Because of some matters, I was delayed. That's why I'm a little late. Fan Lu smiled. Do you think we can delay just because you say so? This is the Emperor Star Academy, not a place for you to behave atrociously. Janus coldly snorted, as a cold glint of light flickered in his eyes. Qin Wenyan and Fan Lu turned their gazes onto Janus, laughing coldly in their hearts. Elder Janus, I'd like to ask if I can become an official student of the 9 great academies if I pass the initial test and survive the training grounds of the Dark Forest? Fan Lu smiled as he asked Janus. Janus had no way to refute. This was something that everyone knew. When I participated in the initial test, it was Elder Janus who personally supervised me. There were also many witnesses who testified that I entered the training grounds of the Dark Forest. Now that I've survived, Elder Janus shouldn't doubt my identity as an official student of the Emperor Star Academy, right? Fan Lu laughed. Even if that's the case, so what? Janus coldly snorted. Today, my Emperor Star Academy. Stop. Before Janus could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by Fan Lu. Fatty slowly inclined his head, staring at Janus as he grinned. Since that's the case, why are you still farting? As the sound of Fan Li's voice faded, the entire space abruptly turned silent. The gazes of everyone were fixated on Fan Lu. The arrogant Fatty lifted his head, as he smiled radiantly at Janus. Fatty's temper wasn't very good. Although he was always smiling, he was almost killed by someone in the dark forest. What was even more despicable was that Orkan, in front of everyone, had shot him with a spear. That spear strike had caused Fatty to lose face. Astral light flashed as an astral bow appeared in Fatty's hands. In an instant, he pierced through the air, shooting towards the void. The crowd inclined their heads as they stared at the arrow shooting towards the sky, with expressions of bewilderment on their faces. However, very quickly, they discovered that the arrow was descending downwards, aiming directly at Orphan's back. It was as though Orphan's path of retreat had been sealed. At the instant Fatty took out the arrow, Qin Wenyan's silhouette flickered. Boom! The entire training grounds trembled. Qin Wenyan's silhouette was akin to a tyrannical hurricane as he lunged towards Orphan. The rumbling sounds of the earth trembling unceasingly rang out, as though there was a rhythm to it. This sudden scene caused the spectators to have no time to react. It was too sudden. Fan Lu had just finished scolding Janus, and right after that, Qin Wenyan and Fan Lu attacked Orphan in front of everyone, in the midst of the Emperor Star Academy's ranking battle. Orphan's countenance instantly turned unsightly to behold. He wanted to retreat, but his path of retreat was completely sealed off by the arrow. He understood how profound Fan Li's archery was. Since Fan Lu wanted to seal off his path of retreat, there was no need for him to think about retreating. He could only advance forward. As long as he defeated Qin Wenyan, Janus and Orkan would definitely not allow Qin Wenyan and Fan Lu to act so atrociously. Qin Wenyan and Fan Lu only needed this instant to deal with him. As he thought of this, Orphan turned and dashed towards Qin Wenyan, not retreating but advancing instead. The frenzied serpent spear abruptly pierced out, resembling an incomparably savage python, wanting to pierce through Qin Wentian's body. Qin Wentian, who was madly dashing towards Orphan, borrowed the momentum of the dragon's subduing fists and punched out. The tyrannical might of the dragon's subduing fists was fully displayed at this moment. An azure dragon howled in rage as it lunged towards Orphan's frenzied serpent spear technique. Pink. The astral spear in Orphan's hands crumbled inch by inch. Feeling the tyrannical might of the dragon's roar, Orphan's countenance instantly paled. It was as though his face was about to be torn apart by the tyrannical force of the dragon's roar. Arterial circulation realm. Orphan's heart trembled. The aura radiating from Qin Wentian indicated that he was at the arterial circulation realm. Not only that, how could his attack be so tyrannical? His body retreated as he condensed an astral shield. The deafening roar reverberated through the air. The gazes of the spectators were fixated on the arena. They only saw the sharp claws of an azure dragon appearing, directly shattering the astral shield into smithereens. Following which, the claws abruptly grabbed onto Orphan's neck. In the next instant, they saw Qin Wentian's palms clasping onto Orphan's neck, lifting him up into the air. "Impudent! Release him!" Enraged shouts rang out as Orkan and the other two youths instantly appeared at the edge of the arena. A wild and unrestrained aura gushed forth as they lunged towards Qin Wentian. This was especially so for Orkan. The long spear in his hands was pointed towards Qin Wentian as killing intent gushed forth from him. "You're courting death?" Orkan coldly stared at Qin Wentian, as though he was looking at a dead man. Qin Wentian hated this kind of gaze. Just like back then in the dark forest, this gaze made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Hence, with a violent jerk of his arm, Orphan's body was directly smashed into the ground. The sound of bones shattering rang out, accompanied by a miserable shriek. Orkan's countenance instantly turned ashen. Qin Wentian had actually abused his younger brother in front of him. This was no longer something that could be described with the word face slapping. He had never been slapped in such a manner before. His face was burning hot, and his killing intent surged forth violently, wanting to dismember Qin Wentian into 1,000 pieces. Even Mustang and the rest were stunned by this sudden scene. Only after a while did they regain their senses. Many thoughts flashed through Mustang's mind, as a brilliant light flickered in his eyes. This fellow is indeed an honest man. If he isn't honest, he's not human. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flashed with a seductive smile. Qin Wentian usually appeared harmless, but if he was angered, he would explode, just like now. However, she liked it. Chapter 46. The teachers of the Emperor Star Academy were all shaken. They stood up, their countenances extremely unsightly as they stared at the scene on the stage. Today was the last day of the ranking battle, and there were many students from the outer academy who came to spectate. But today, on the stage, there were actually 2 students who wanted to kill Orphan. In the history of the Emperor Star Academy, such a brazen act had never happened before. As expected of students from the Emperor's Star Academy, not a single one of them would know their place. Some of the teachers from the outer academy had smiles on their faces as they witnessed this scene. Geniuses were always arrogant, especially when a group of geniuses were gathered in the same place. It was inevitable that they would clash with each other. The Emperor Star Academy was known as the cradle of geniuses in the Chu country. Many of the students there were arrogant and untamed, and were the most difficult to tame. Hence, the teachers of the Emperor Star Academy were all extremely powerful. On the spectator stands, there were also many old students like Luo Huan and Orkan. Their lips curled into a faint smile as they silently mused. Interesting, the Emperor Star Academy has another troublemaker. And this time around there were 2 of them. I wonder if their strength is as great as their guts. Janus walked down the stage step by step, staring at Qin Wentian as he coldly stated, "In the history of the Emperor Star Academy, there has never been such an impudent student. Now there is." Qin Wentian stared at Janus as he coldly replied, "There has to be someone who can lead the way." Fan Le grinned. At this moment, he had also walked to the side of Qin Wenyin. Staring at Orphan's enraged eyes, Fatty accidentally placed his foot on Orphan's palm and twisted it, causing Orphan to howl in agony. The pain from his palm caused him to grit his teeth in anger. Fatty lowered his head, looking at Orphan apologetically as he smiled. "Sorry, I didn't see it." Although this was what he said, the force of Fatty's foot increased, causing Orphan's screams to become even more shrill. The spectators all rolled their eyes. This fellow was so shameless. "Do you see it now?" Killing intent gushed forth from Orkhan's body as he slowly approached Orphan. Fatty stared at Orkhan as he increased the force of his foot, causing tears to flow from Orphan's eyes. "I saw it, but I didn't move my eyes away." Fatty grinned at Orkhan. He would never forget the look of contempt in Orkhan's eyes that day. Fatty was very vengeful. Qin Wenyan coldly spat out. In his hands, the astral heavenly hammer gleamed with a resplendent light as it smashed down towards Orphan's head. As long as this hammer smashed down, Orphan would instantly lose his life. Janice, Orkhan, and the rest stopped in their tracks. Since they had met two lunatics, even if they were infuriated, they had no choice but to endure. "What do you want?" Janice stared at the two of them as he asked. This was the first time he felt so aggrieved in front of these two students. As long as he could rescue Orphan, he would definitely make sure that Qin Wenyan and Fan Le would die a horrible death. "You'll have to ask my boss about that. I'm very low-key." Fatty smiled and threw the question to Qin Wenyan. The crowd rolled their eyes when they heard what he said. Fatty was really very low-key. Fan Le was extremely angry about what happened in the dark forest. Hence, he didn't hold back and chose to seek revenge. However, in his heart, Fan Le was very clear that the source of this matter was none other than Qin Wenyan. He and Qin Wenyan stood shoulder to shoulder on the stage, facing the storm together. However, he had also handed the final decision to Qin Wenyan. Fatty was very low-key, but he wasn't cowardly at all. Since he was standing here, it meant that no matter what decision Qin Wenyan made, he would have to bear the consequences together with Qin Wenyan. Shameless Fatty, but he's actually very loyal. How intelligent was Luo Huan? Her beautiful eyes shone with a brilliant light. She discovered that although she had just met this Fatty, she also liked this low-key and shameless Fatty the same way she liked Qin Wenyan. "Fatty, if we spare Orphan, do you think Orkhan will apologize to us and let us go?" Qin Wenyan laughed as he gazed at Fan Le. "He won't." Fan Le shook his head. "Back in the dark forest, he already wanted our lives. Now, I'm afraid he wants us even more. Even if we kneel down and beg for mercy, the result would still be the same." "Seems like it." Qin Wenyan mumbled, his words causing the countenances of Janice and Orkhan to turn even more unsightly. From their conversation, it seemed as though they had completely disregarded them and had no intentions of letting Orphan off. Qin Wenyan shifted his gaze towards Mustang, who was also walking up the stage. Smiling, he asked, "Teacher Mustang, I have a few questions I'd like to consult you on." "Go ahead." Mustang replied. "If you have no grudges with someone, but someone wants to kill you, and in addition, almost succeeded several times, what would you do if that person landed in your hands?" Qin Wenyan asked. "I'd kill him." Mustang replied. "His clan is extremely powerful." Qin Wenyan asked again. "I won't kill him. His clan is still extremely powerful." Mustang replied. Janice roared in rage. Who are these people? How could the crowd not understand the meaning behind their conversation? Mustang was instigating Qin Wenyan. At this moment, the crowd understood that Orphan definitely wanted to kill Qin Wenyan and Fan Le. Hence, they didn't care about the consequences, directly walking up the stage and trampling Orphan beneath their feet. They even dared to challenge the prestige of the Emperor Star Academy. Before this, when Qin Wenyan and Fan Le were discussing how to deal with Orphan, both of them came to an agreement. Regardless of whether they killed Orphan or not, the result would be the same. Hence, the conclusion they came to was, kill. Now, the meaning behind the conversation between Qin Wenyan and Mustang was even more thought-provoking. Qin Wenyan was asking for Mustang's opinion. Naturally, he used a veiled tone to ask for Mustang's opinion, but everyone could hear it clearly. Regardless of whether they killed Orphan or not, the power of the O clan was there for all to see. They would definitely deal with Qin Wenyin. There was no doubt about this. Hence, whether they killed Orphan or not, to Qin Wenyin there was no difference. Mustang, the ironclad rule of the Emperor's Star Academy forbids students from engaging in life and death battles within the academy grounds. You should know the consequences of violating this rule. Janice's tone was filled with an intense coldness. Mustang actually dared to express his stance in public, hinting at Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin. Mustang stared at Qin Wenyin as he continued. In the history of the Emperor's Star Academy, there have been 3 cases where students killed others within the academy grounds. One of them, the student who killed the other was executed on the spot. Another time, the student who killed the other was imprisoned in a forbidden area for a total of 50 years. After which, he swore that he would never step out of the Emperor's Star Academy, and that he was willing to take up a position within the academy. Mustang's words caused the countenances of the crowd to turn solemn. The ironclad rule of the Emperor's Star Academy was simply too strict. Within the academy grounds, no one was allowed to kill anyone. If not, the consequences would be extremely severe. Because of the existence of the ironclad rule, nobody dared to act recklessly within the academy grounds. What about the other time? Qin Wenyin stared at Mustang as he asked. If that was really a path to death, then what was the meaning of the conversation he had with Mustang earlier? The other time, the student who killed the other is currently the headmaster of the Emperor's Star Academy. Mustang's calm voice caused the atmosphere to abruptly turn silent. They all knew how strict the ironclad rule of the Emperor's Star Academy was, especially when it came to killing fellow students within the academy grounds. However, very few people knew of this history. The current headmaster of the Emperor's Star Academy was one of the students who had violated the ironclad rule. Qin Wenyin stared into Mustang's eyes. He didn't ask why, because he already understood. 3 students, 3 completely different fates. One died, one worked for the Emperor's Star Academy, and one became the headmaster of the Emperor's Star Academy. 3 different fates, because the value of the 3 of them to the Emperor's Star Academy was completely different. The students of the Emperor's Star Academy were all thorns. They came from all over the Emperor's Star Academy, and all of them had extraordinary talent. The Emperor's Star Academy had never cared about how thorny you were, or how arrogant you were. What they cared about was whether you had the capital to be thorny, and whether you had the capital to be arrogant. Geniuses were arrogant, self-confidence, and arrogance. Mediocre people were arrogant, conceited, and foolish. In this world, other than blood relatives, no one owed anyone anything. If you wanted others to do something for you, you had to first prove what you could give to them. Qin Wenyin had already understood this logic when he was at the Star River Association in the Sky Harmony City. He didn't agree to Murin's conditions, which was why Murin chose to betray him in exchange for the benefits of the Yi clan. This was reality. It was extremely naked. And now he, Qin Wenyin, was once again faced with a choice. Regardless of whether he killed Orphan or not, the O clan and Orkhan would still want Qin Wenyin dead. Hence, there was no need to consider them. The only thing Qin Wenyin needed to consider was the attitude of the Emperor's Star Academy. Qin Wenyin inclined his head as he stared at Orkhan. A radiant smile could be seen on his face, as though there was already an answer in his clear eyes. In the Sky Harmony City, he and the Qin clan were forced into such a miserable state by the Yi clan. In the royal capital of Chu, Janice made things difficult for him, and Orphan wanted to kill him. In front of him, there was the Yi clan, the O clan, and even the most terrifying power in Chu, the royal clan. This time around, if he chose to endure and let Orphan off, the Yi clan and the O clan would only scorn him for his cowardice. In the royal capital of Chu, the answer was very simple. Hence, to him, the answer was actually very simple. Chapter 47. The gazes of countless people landed on Qin Wenyin. What decision would he make? Bzz. The long spear in Orkhan's hands shimmered with a terrifying light, as waves of killing intent gushed forth unabashedly. Looking at the smile on Qin Wentian's face, Orkan had a bad premonition. Qin Wenyan really dared to make a move. Release him. Orkan's voice was filled with a terrifying coldness. Looking at that cold countenance, Qin Wenyan was exceptionally calm. Even at this moment, you still haven't put down that arrogance of yours. Just like before, you stare at me with that gaze. Most probably, you don't care about his death at all. As he spoke, Qin Wentian's fists shimmered with a brilliant light. At this moment, the hearts of the spectators all tensed up. If you make a move, I can guarantee that you won't become the third. Only the first will be your final resting place. Janice stared at Qin Wenyan. The third person had become the headmaster of the Emperor's Star Academy, while the first person had been killed by the Emperor's Star Academy. If I'm only the first, then in this vast royal capital, if I don't kill him, there will be no place for me to live. The smile on Qin Wentian's face remained unchanged. The first person meant that he didn't have much value to the Emperor's Star Academy. If that was the case, how could he establish a foothold in the royal capital? Lowering his head, Qin Wentian stared at Orphan. Orphan stared back at him, and when he saw the look in Qin Wentian's eyes, Orphan felt true fear. Your life is in my hands, yet no one is willing to lower their heads for you. The person you should hate isn't me. Qin Wenyan calmly stated, causing Orphan's body to tremble. Qin Wentian's words were akin to an announcement of his death. That's right, he had tried to take Qin Wentian's life several times, and Qin Wentian's desire to kill him was within his expectations. However, his elder brother, as well as Janice, none of them had lowered their heads to plead for him. This caused him to feel a wave of sorrow. He had once worshipped the arrogance of his elder brother. But at this moment, when this arrogance was used on Qin Wenyan, it actually caused him, Orphan, to lose his life. Qin Wenyan raised his arm and punched out with the dragon's subduing fists. The roar of a dragon rang out as an azure dragon lunged towards Orphan's head. I hate it. Orphan let out an enraged roar of despair. After which, a thunderous boom rang out as his body exploded into pieces. Only that roar of unwillingness remained, reverberating through the air for a long time. The entire space became even quieter, so much so that one could hear a pin drop. Qin Wenyan became the fourth person in the history of the Emperor's Star Academy. The fourth person who dared to kill another student within the academy grounds. Mustang, Luo Huan, and the rest felt their hearts pounding. Killed, Qin Wenyan had killed Orphan on the spot. The spectators below also drew in a deep breath. The Emperor's Star Academy had produced two madmen. Orkan's eyes flashed with an extreme coldness. He advanced towards Qin Wenyan, as killing intent gushed forth from his body. Organ, Janice called out, causing Orkan to halt his steps. He wanted nothing more than to pierce through Qin Wentian's head with his spear. However, Qin Wenyan had already violated the greatest taboo of the Emperor's Star Academy. Orkan couldn't become the fifth person to do so. If not, although he had avenged Orphan, his own life would be in an extremely difficult position. For those who violated the ironclad rules of the Emperor's Star Academy, the Academy would never look at their background. Killing a fellow student in the ranking battle of the Emperor's Star Academy? You are the first person who dared to challenge the prestige of the Emperor's Star Academy. Janice stared at Qin Wenyan, as though he was looking at a dead man. I, Janice, in the name of an elder of the Emperor's Star Academy, request permission from the disciplinary committee to kill Qin Wenyan on the spot, in order to avenge his brother Orphan. Janice's voice was cold. At this moment, silhouettes after silhouettes leapt onto the training grounds. These people were all disciples of the disciplinary committee, and as they stepped onto the training grounds, they instantly dashed towards Qin Wenyan. Behind the crowd, a middle-aged man slowly walked up. Thousand Hands, the disciplinary elder of the disciplinary committee. He had the authority to make decisions within the Emperor's Star Academy. His gaze was emotionless as he glanced at Qin Wenyan. During the training grounds of the Dark Forest, Orphan wanted to kill Qin Wenyan several times. If not, the two of them wouldn't have come to the academy for revenge. I, Mustang, request for the disciplinary elder to be lenient with this punishment. As for Qin Wenyan, I will personally accept him as my disciple. Mustang stepped forward, similarly stepping onto the training grounds. Janus wanted Qin Wendian to die, while Mustang wanted to protect Qin Wendian. Elder Thousand Hands, Mustang incited Qin Wendian to kill a fellow student, and now he even dared to shield a murderer. I, Janus, request the disciplinary committee to convict Mustang of this crime. Janus took a step forward, opposing with equal harshness. The seniors of the Emperor Star Academy all knew that Janus and Mustang had different standpoints and were already like fire and water. Hence, they weren't surprised by the scene before them. But how would the disciplinary committee handle this? Qin Wendian, you killed a fellow student during the ranking battle. Do you admit to this crime? Thousand Hands didn't bother with Janus and Mustang, only staring at Qin Wendian as he coldly asked. The members of the disciplinary committee had already surrounded Qin Wendian. Upon witnessing this scene, the hearts of the spectators trembled. It seemed like the disciplinary committee would not spare Qin Wendian. The matter of Orphan attempting to assassinate me in the dark forest, will the disciplinary committee pursue this matter? Qin Wendian stared at Thousand Hands as he asked. Nope. Thousand Hands straightforwardly replied. The disciplinary committee will not pursue this matter. Of course I want to avenge myself. What crime is there in that? Qin Wendian's voice was domineering. This fellow, Mountain, who was standing at the back, was dumbfounded. This Qin Wendian, how could he dare to talk back to the members of the disciplinary committee? I, Janus, once again request the disciplinary committee to allow Orkan to kill this brat personally, in order to avenge his brother. Janus spoke once more. Thousand Hands was silent for a moment, before he waved his hands. Momentarily, the members of the disciplinary committee stepped aside, leaving space for Orkan and Qin Wendian. Elder Thousand Hands, if the disciplinary committee agrees to Janus's request, I'm afraid that I will have to interfere. Mustang was extremely domineering as he took a step forward. Mustang, you dare to interfere with the disciplinary committee? Janus coldly laughed as he walked towards Mustang. Orkan, on the other hand, emitted a murderous aura as he advanced towards Qin Wendian. Not only that, the disciples of Janus and Mustang, with Qin Wendian in the center, stood in the middle of the martial arena, facing off against each other. This storm seemed to be getting more and more intense. And at this moment, in the heart of the storm, above Qin Wendian's head, astral light abruptly flashed as his astral soul appeared. Looking at the color of the astral soul, one could tell that it originated from the third heavenly layer. This scene caused the eyes of Thousand Hands to narrow. He wasn't acquainted with Qin Wendian, and thus, he didn't know that Qin Wendian's first astral soul originated from the third heavenly layer. The third heavenly layer? What kind of background does this person have? No wonder Mustang is so protective of him. Upon seeing Qin Wendian's astral soul, many in the crowd sighed in their hearts. This matter was getting more and more interesting. Most probably, the Emperor Star Academy wouldn't allow a genius whose first astral soul originated from the third heavenly layer to perish. An expression of contemplation could be seen in Thousand Hands' eyes. This fellow was extremely prickly, but he did have the qualifications to be arrogant. He was considering how he should deal with Qin Wendian. Oh, you do it? Janus spoke in a low voice. Immediately, Orkan dashed towards Qin Wendian, while at the same time, Janus stood in front of Mustang, wanting to prevent Mustang from assisting Qin Wendian. Mountain stepped out as he released his astral soul. His entire person was akin to a wall, blocking Qin Wendian's path. Punching out with his fist, it felt as though countless boulders were smashing towards Orkan. Scram! Orkan roared in rage. Resplendent astral light radiated from his long spear, causing numerous pythons to frenziedly wreak havoc. Boulders unceasingly exploded as his long spear penetrated through everything. Mountain's countenance sank as he was forced to retreat. Although Orkan was impudent, he was definitely a character amongst the students of the Emperor Star Academy. Thousand Hands, he was still observing from the sidelines. At this moment, Qin Wendian was as calm as ever. Since he didn't want to be suppressed by the Yi and O clan in the royal capital, he might as well prove his worth by standing on the arena of the Emperor Star Academy in front of everyone. An even more resplendent astral light radiated forth. Beside the heavenly hammer astral soul, Qin Wenyan released his second astral soul, the great dream astral soul. Thousand Hands inclined his head as he gazed at the astral soul. In the next instant his gaze froze. The color of this astral soul was crimson gold. The great dream astral soul was enveloped within a crimson gold halo. Thousand Hands was a Yuanfu realm cultivator, and was also the disciplinary elder of the Emperor's Star Academy. However, he had never imagined that there would be a day where he would be able to witness a crimson astral soul in the body of a 16-year-old youth. But today he had witnessed it. Not only him, everyone else had witnessed it as well. When the great dream astral soul with a crimson gold halo was released, all the fighting and killing seemed to have lost all meaning to its existence. The gazes of everyone were all focused on that astral soul. Qin Wentian's countenance was as calm as ever, but the gazes in the eyes of the spectators were completely different. This type of astral soul should be from the fourth heavenly layer, right? His first astral soul was condensed from an astral soul from the third heavenly layer, while his second astral soul was condensed from an astral soul from the fourth heavenly layer. Qin Wenyan had made history in the history of the Emperor's Star Academy, an unprecedented feat. Stop. In the skies above, a voice abruptly rang out, akin to the rumbling of thunder, jolting the spectators who were in a daze back to their senses. The pupils of Thousand Hands narrowed, as a look of reverence flashed in his eyes. After which, he commanded, "Everyone stop. Those who disobey will be punished by the disciplinary hall." Everyone halted their battles in that instant. Their gazes were fixated on Qin Wenyan, their countenances exceptionally fascinating. This was especially so for Janice and Orkun. The expressions on their faces could be said to be extremely rich to the extreme. Silence, deathly silence. The young man who killed Orphan had become the focus of everyone's attention, becoming the main character of today's event. Chapter 48. After Qin Wenyan condensed his great dream's astral soul, he used the acupuncture technique to suppress the radiance of the astral soul. However, this time around he didn't suppress it by too much, only causing the golden-red radiance to fade. Because he had already thought about it with the influence of the Yi clan in the royal capital, if he didn't display sufficient talent to attract the attention of the higher-ups of the Emperor's Star Academy, it would be extremely difficult for him to establish a foothold in the royal capital. He also didn't directly release the fifth layer of heavenly light. If it was too heaven-defying, there would be some people who would pay any price to kill him. Hence, the current scene appeared. When I was in the Sky Harmony City, I had already passed Teacher Mustang's test. Because of the Emperor's Star Academy's promise, I traveled tens of thousands of miles to the royal capital to register. However, Janice didn't bestow me with the Emperor's Star Jade Medallion, and instead wanted me to participate in the joint gathering of the 9 academies. I agreed. In the silent space, Qin Wenyan slowly spoke. No one would disturb him, and in the entire space, only his voice could be heard. During the joint gathering of the 9 academies, Orphan gathered the other students to hunt me and Fan Lu down. They almost succeeded, but because Fan Lu ignited the power of his bloodline limit, we were able to defeat Orphan. However, at that moment, Orkhan appeared and said that Fan Lu and I had harmed a fellow student, and almost killed him on the spot. At that time, who in the Emperor's Star Academy would enforce the law for us? After that, Orphan once again roped in experts at the arterial circulation realm to hunt us down, forcing us into desperate straits. Luckily, we were lucky and only returned alive after 10 days. The first thing we thought of was to return to the Emperor's Star Academy to register, and when we saw Orphan, we were so enraged that we even tried to kill him. Let me ask you, what crime did we commit? Qin Wenyan slowly recounted the events, and in addition to the talent he displayed, the crowd felt that Qin Wenyan wasn't in the wrong. Not only that, according to Qin Wentian's words, not only was his talent extraordinary, that Fatty Fan Lu actually had the power of a bloodline limit. If this was the case, the Emperor's Star Academy had no choice but to reconsider. If the Emperor's Star Academy still feels that I'm guilty, then please do not accuse me of being a student of the Emperor's Star Academy. I have yet to receive my Jade Medallion, and thus cannot be considered as a student of the Emperor's Star Academy. Killing Orphan, just treat it as me coming to the Emperor's Star Academy to take revenge. Qin Wentian's voice was still the same as before. Now, as for how to deal with this matter, I'll leave it up to you. As the sound of his voice faded, that dazzling astral soul vanished. However, the hearts of the crowd were still unable to calm down. It wasn't easy for me, Mustang, to obtain such a student. If the academy were to reject him and even punish him, there would be no meaning for me to be a teacher anymore. Mustang stared at Thousand Hands as he emotionlessly stated. Momentarily, all the pressure was concentrated on Thousand Hands, causing him to be in a difficult position. At this moment, he actually had no intention of convicting Qin Wentian. Otherwise, the higher-ups would probably blame him. He was afraid that there were higher-ups watching them now. Thinking of this, Thousand Hands couldn't help but feel depressed. If he didn't handle this matter well, there would be many people who would be unhappy with him. Naturally, the one who was the most depressed was none other than Janus. At the instant when Qin Wentian released his 2 astral souls, he already knew that Qin Wentian wouldn't die. Not only would he not die, he would even receive the attention of the higher-ups. And he, Janus, had offended a character with immense potential just like that. And there was also Orkan. He still hated Qin Wentian to the core, and wanted nothing more than to kill him on the spot. Although the cause of this matter was because of his relationship with Yi Wuke, and because of this, he wanted to help Yi Wuke resolve this small problem. To him, this wasn't something difficult at all. But who would have thought that it would result in such a situation? However, no one would think that they were in the wrong. Hence, the person he hated was Qin Wentian. His younger brother, Orphan, was killed by Qin Wentian on the spot. Not only that, even if Qin Wentian killed Orphan, it would still be a waste of effort. How could Orkan not be enraged? Impudent. At this moment, Thousand Hands finally opened his mouth. What caused everyone to be astonished was that he directly berated Qin Wentian. What a load of nonsense. Since you participated in the examination of the Emperor Star Academy and survived the Dark Forest, how can you not be a student of the Academy? Thousand Hands berated Qin Wentian. The Emperor Star Jade Medallion is merely a formality. Since you have already chosen to enroll in the Emperor Star Academy, you are already a student of the Academy. Hence, I, Thousand Hands, as the disciplinary elder of the Emperor Star Academy, have the authority to discipline you. Although you took revenge for yourself today, the consequences of your actions are too severe. I have decided to temporarily imprison you for a month. At the same time, I will send people to investigate the matter in the Dark Forest. If what you said is true, then I will treat this battle as a private battle between you and Orphan, and have nothing to do with the Academy. Naturally, if what you said is a lie, then I will. Thousand Hands seemed to have not thought of what he would do if Qin Wentian lied. He paused for a moment before adding, let's talk about it when the time comes. Come with me first. Pucha. Luo Huan laughed lightly as she covered her mouth with her hands. A strange light flashed in her eyes. This was the first time she had seen the incorruptible and impartial Elder Thousand Hands in such an awkward situation. Although Thousand Hands was berating Qin Wentian, everyone could hear the meaning behind his words. Regardless of whether Qin Wentian lied or not, Orphan had died for nothing. Not only that, Thousand Hands was obviously trying to drag Qin Wentian into the Emperor Star Academy, saying that Qin Wentian was now a student of the Academy. Qin Wentian and Fan Lu exchanged glances, as traces of smiles could be seen in their eyes. Today, they had finally managed to vent their anger. However, the expression in Orkan's eyes was still as loathsome as ever. Fatty was thinking in his heart that if he could deal with Orkan in the same manner, it would be perfect. Naturally, Fatty was only thinking about it. Towards those he couldn't defeat, Fatty's principle had always been that a gentleman could wait 10 years for revenge. Towards those he could defeat, Fatty's principle was that a hero wouldn't wait overnight for revenge. Hence, towards Orphan, Fatty chose to be a hero. Towards Orkan, Fatty decided to be a gentleman. And you will also be confined as well. Reflect on your actions. Just when Fatty was fantasizing about being a hero or a gentleman, Thousand Hands berated him. However, Fatty didn't seem to care at all. Grinning, he patted Qin Wentian's shoulder. "Good brothers, we will share hardships together. This is my brother, Qin Wenin. I, Fan Lu, will naturally accompany him." Fatty inclined his head, as though he was afraid that others wouldn't know that he and Qin Wenin were brothers. Shameless. This Fatty is too shameless. The spectators cursed in their hearts. This Fatty was simply showing off his strength. Naturally, only Qin Wenin knew that Fatty didn't know of Qin Wentian's talent when they were in the dark forest. Later on, when they were in danger, Fatty could have easily left by himself. However, Fatty didn't. Although Fatty was shameless, his shamelessness caused people to feel warmth in their hearts. The members of the disciplinary committee brought Qin Wentian and Fan Lu away. Mustang wasn't worried in the slightest. At the instant Qin Wentian released his astral blood astral soul, he already knew the outcome. Casting a glance at Janice, Mustang led his disciples away. The ranking battles continued, but the spectators were in no mood to continue. Their minds were still replaying the scenes from earlier. What happened in the Emperor Star Academy today would soon spread to the other academies. His name is Qin Wentian? How handsome! Some of the girls had love-struck expressions on their faces as they recalled the scene of that unbridled youth killing Orphan on the spot. After which, he unleashed his talent and became the #1 genius in the history of the Emperor Star Academy. Orphan brought Orphan's corpse and left. He wanted to return to his clan, as news of what happened here would soon spread to his clan. Qin Wentian and Fan Lu were punished with confinement. However, they were confined in an extremely elegant courtyard with a small bridge over a flowing stream. This caused Fatty to sigh in admiration. Only a few beauties were missing, and the confinement would be perfect. Fatty was extremely happy, but at this moment, Thousand Hands was having a headache. At this moment, many people appeared in front of him, and all of them were elders of the academy. "Elder Thousand Hands, I only wish to meet with Qin Wentian. This request isn't too overboard, right?" At this moment, a tanned-looking tower-like man looked at Thousand Hands, requesting to meet with Qin Wentian. "Thousand Hands, I guarantee that it won't take up too much of your time. I only want to have a casual chat with Qin Wentian." Another person smiled as he looked at Thousand Hands. Staring at the silhouettes in front of him, Thousand Hands felt a headache coming on. How could he not understand the thoughts of these people? Qin Wentian had yet to receive his Emperor Star Jade Medallion, so naturally he hadn't joined any of the academies yet. Although Mustang had already seized the initiative, they still had a chance to tempt him. "You bunch of bastards!" At this moment, an explosive voice rang out, causing the crowd to fall silent. Turning their heads, they saw Mustang's face turning black. The crowd couldn't help but feel embarrassed in their hearts when they saw Mustang. However, their faces were still as serious as ever. "Today is the last day of the ranking battle, yet all of you are here. How are students supposed to choose their own teachers? Now, the vice headmaster is already enraged. Do as you see fit." Mustang coldly snorted. After Thousand Hands brought Qin Wentian away, Mustang quickly discovered that the other teachers of the Emperor Star Academy had all slipped away. As the sound of Mustang's voice faded, the teachers of the Emperor Star Academy all disappeared in the blink of an eye. Thousand Hands shook his head as a bitter smile appeared on his face. Gazing at Mustang, Thousand Hands stated, "Mustang, the vice headmaster is enraged. You should quickly go as well." Mustang stared at Thousand Hands as he laughed. "Before that, can Elder Thousand Hands allow me to meet with my disciple, Qin Wentian? I have something to tell him." Thousand Hands froze as he contemplated Mustang. After which, he laughed. "Mustang, the vice headmaster didn't even go, right?" Mustang couldn't help but to smile awkwardly after being exposed, causing Thousand Hands to be dumbfounded. He glared at Mustang. "You are ruthless. Go on in." Chapter 49. Upon noticing Mustang's arrival, Qin Wentian stood up to welcome him. With a smile in his eyes, he called out, "Teacher Mustang." Mustang smiled at the silhouette in front of him. Today, Qin Wentian had given him a huge surprise. "Qin Wentian, your guts aren't small. You actually dared to kill Orphan in front of so many people. Mustang stared at Qin Wenyan as he continued. The O clan is one of the most influential clans in the royal capital. Since you killed Orphan, I'm afraid they will definitely remember you. Teacher Mustang, didn't you tell me that regardless of whether I killed Orphan or not, the power of the O clan would still be there? Qin Wenyan smiled as he replied. Ever since Orphan started hunting him down in the dark forest, there was no longer any leeway for reconciliation. Qin Wenyan obviously didn't think that just because he had spared Orphan, the other party would be grateful to him and not make things difficult for him anymore. Although that's the case, if it weren't for the talent you revealed later on, I'm afraid that you would have been in grave danger. Luckily, everything has temporarily passed. The Emperor's Star Academy will give you sufficient attention. Regardless of whether it's the Yi clan or the O clan, if they want to deal with you, they will have to consider the attitude of the Emperor's Star Academy first. Mustang smiled as he continued. Naturally, your personal strength is the most important. After all, it's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but hard to guard against an arrow in the dark. If they want to kill someone, there are too many methods they can use. They can even leave no traces behind, making it impossible for others to trace back to them. Hence, you have to raise your cultivation as soon as possible, and at the same time, be careful when you leave the academy. Understood. Qin Wenyan nodded his head. Oh yeah, I came here because I wanted to tell you about the current situation of the Emperor's Star Academy. The history of the Emperor's Star Academy is even longer than the Chu country. Its founder was the Azure Emperor. It's said that 3,000 years ago, there were only a few stellar martial cultivators here. Hence, the Azure Emperor established the Emperor's Star Academy in an attempt to usher in the era of stellar martial cultivators. Mustang slowly continued. Currently, the Emperor's Star Academy is composed entirely of stellar martial cultivators. There's a headmaster, 3 vice-headmasters, 9 honorary elders, 36 elders, and an unknown number of guest elders. As for the rest, they are all students. Students of the Emperor's Star Academy can only officially apply to graduate after they have stepped into Yuanfu. Hence, although the academy only accepts a few hundred students every batch, the vast majority of students require a long period of time before they can step into Yuanfu. Currently, the number of students in the Emperor's Star Academy exceeds 3,000, and their teachers are the 36 elders as well as the guest elders. The guest elders are all students who have already stepped into Yuanfu. Even the guest elders are at the Yuanfu realm? Qin Wenyan exclaimed in shock. The strength of the Emperor's Star Academy was truly terrifying. These guest elders are actually the disciples of the 36 elders. After they step into Yuanfu, they can apply to graduate. However, there are some who are willing to remain in the Emperor's Star Academy to continue their cultivation, and they will be given the position of guest elders to assist their teachers in guiding the students. After all, for every batch of new students, only the top 30 have the right to choose their teachers, and they can directly enter the tutelage of an elder. As for the others, they will be guided by the guest elders under the tutelage of the elders. Of course, don't underestimate the strength of the guest elders. Some of the guest elders have already surpassed their teachers. Mustang smiled as he introduced. Qin Wenyan and Fan Le both understood. In the future, if senior sister Luo Huan or senior brother Mountain stepped into Yuanfu and were willing to stay in the Emperor's Star Academy, they would become the guest elders under Mustang. For this year's batch, I have yet to accept any disciples. Are the two of you willing? Mustang stared at Qin Wenyan and Fan Le, finally revealing the reason for his visit. Qin Wenyan nodded his head. The reason why he came to the Emperor's Star Academy was because of Mustang. Naturally, he would become Mustang's disciple. However, at this moment, Qin Wenyan's eyes flickered as he laughed mischievously. Boss, there are 36 elders in the academy. I'm sure many of them would want to accept you as their disciple. Why don't we wait and see first? Mustang froze when he heard Fan Le's words. Looking at the shameless expression on Fatty's face, he really wanted to give him a good beating. This shameless fellow actually dared to openly ask for a disciple gift? How arrogant! Turning his head, Mustang saw that Qin Wenyan was also smiling at him. Instantly his hatred for Fatty intensified. Reaching into his robes, Mustang retrieved 2 secret manuals and passed them to Qin Wenyin. This is a cultivation art and an innate technique. The cultivation art is at the high grade of Yuanfu, sufficient to support you all the way to Yuanfu. As for the innate technique, it's at the mid-grade of Earth grade. Usually, only Yuanfu cultivators would be able to unleash the full power of the innate technique. The cultivation art was divided according to cultivation level. The Yuanfu cultivation art could support Wuxiu all the way to Yuanfu, while the Heavenly Dipper cultivation art could support Wuxiu all the way to Heavenly Dipper. Innate techniques could be divided into 3 levels and 9 grades. The 3 levels were the heavenly, earthly, and human levels. The human level corresponded to the arterial circulation realm, while the earthly level corresponded to the Yuanfu realm. Many thanks, teacher. Qin Wenyin didn't stand on ceremony as he received the 2 manuals. The word teacher was extremely passionate, causing Mustang to roll his eyes. But soon after, a smile appeared on his face. The matter regarding Qin Wenyin had finally come to an end. Teacher, what about me? Fan Lu winked at Mustang. Mustang looked at Fan Lu as he grinned. Whether or not I accept you as my disciple, I still need to consider it carefully. Don't be like this, teacher. I know I'm in the wrong. Fan Li's countenance sank, causing both Qin Wenyin and Mustang to burst out laughing. This Fatty was too shameless. Fatty, I already have a suitable cultivation art for you to cultivate. This is for you. Qin Wenyin passed the cultivation art to Fan Lu, while keeping the innate technique for himself. Many thanks. What is this innate technique? Fan Lu moved to the side of Qin Wenyin, as he whispered, 1,000 hands imprint. This innate technique is exceedingly difficult to cultivate. When cultivated to the highest level, one would be able to unleash the 1,000 hands imprint with unimaginable might. Elder 1,000 Hands became famous because he cultivated this technique, earning him the title of Elder 1,000 Hands. Qin Wenyin, you have to study it well. Mustang reminded Qin Wenyin. I will. Qin Wenyin nodded. He had already mastered the dragon subduing fist, and he already had the spirit refinement method and the dreamcast art. Now that he had obtained the 1,000 Hands imprint, it was naturally for the best. Okay, this is your Emperor Star Jade Medallion. During this 1 month of seclusion, cultivate well. When you guys come out, I will get your senior brothers and sisters to bring you to understand the situation of the academy. After speaking, Mustang stood up and left. Fatty winked at Qin Wenyin before he left to study the innate technique. Qin Wenyin flipped through the pages of the 1,000 Hands imprint. This innate technique looked extremely simple, and there were only 5 forms to it. Diamond imprint, revolving sea imprint, emptiness imprint, desolation imprint, and great 1,000 Hands imprint. The first form, diamond imprint, was extremely strong and unyielding, possessing boundless might. The second form, revolving sea imprint, was akin to waves crashing against each other, containing a hint of softness amidst the hardness, containing boundless might. As for the great 1,000 Hands imprint, the palm imprints emitted were akin to a 1,000-armed Buddha, capable of crushing the heavens and earth. Although this 1,000 Hands imprint is tyrannical, it consumes a great deal of Yuan energy. Only by condensing Yuan energy into a terrifying palm imprint would one be able to unleash such a fearsome attack. Qin Wenyin mumbled to himself. The stronger the attack, the more Yuan energy it consumed. Spirit refinement method, divine imprints. Qin Wenyin suddenly thought of a possibility. The first level of the spirit refinement method required the user to condense divine energy using first-level divine imprints. In that case, if he were to condense divine energy using palm imprints in tandem with this 1,000 Hands imprint, how terrifying would the power be? As he thought of this, Qin Wenyan's heart pounded. In his memories, there was a palm imprint divine imprint. This type of divine imprint could be used to forge divine weapons that could amplify one's attack power. With this idea in mind, Qin Wenyin started to put it into practice, and started to cultivate the spirit refinement method. The cultivation of the spirit refinement method was extremely difficult, and it consumed a great deal of astral energy. The the vast amount of astral energy could only be condensed into a single divine imprint. After which, using a special method, the astral energy would be condensed into a single granule of divine energy, which would then be stored in one's acupuncture points. This process was exceedingly slow, and after which, Qin Wenyan gradually became able to enter the shallow dreamscape. Hence, he began to cultivate in his dreams, condensing his divine energy. In the shallow dreamscape, the speed at which he absorbed the astral energy from the 9 heavenly layers was much faster. In the future, if he were to enter the dream creation and dream forgetting realms, the speed at which he could absorb the astral energy would definitely be even faster, and he would be able to make up for the time spent on cultivating the spirit refinement method. Of course, after this month, Qin Wenyan would still have to think of ways to obtain more Yuan meteor stones to support his cultivation. As time flowed by, Qin Wenyan's cultivation of the spirit refinement method gradually reached the entry level, and the speed at which he condensed his divine energy increased. Sometimes he would even sleep for 3 to 4 days, cultivating in his dreams. This caused Fatty to be so bored that he was about to go crazy. He really wanted to leave this place earlier and interact more with the beautiful female students of this batch. A month's time quickly passed. Qin Wenyan directly slept in the pavilion as the astral light from the heavens cascaded down onto his body, flowing into his arterial pathways. After which, the astral energy from the astral light converged together, unceasingly condensing into the shape of a palm. After which, the astral energy was gradually compressed, and finally flowed through the arterial pathways to be stored in his acupuncture points. In this month of cultivation, not only did Qin Wenyan master the entry level of the spirit refinement method, he also mastered the first stance of the 1,000 Hands imprint. At the same time, he also expanded the size of his acupuncture points, allowing him to store even more astral energy from the astral light. When the astral energy reached the limit, that would be the time when the second arterial pathway would be formed, signifying that he had stepped into the second level of the arterial circulation realm. Obviously, breaking through to the arterial circulation realm was much more difficult compared to breaking through to the body refinement realm. The amount of astral energy that could be stored in Qin Wenyan's body had already increased by 6 to 7 times compared to when he first broke through. However, he still hadn't managed to form his second arterial pathway. From this, one could see that the disparity between every level of the arterial circulation realm was extremely great. The reason why Qin Wenyan was able to defeat Orphan was because his instantaneous burst of strength was too overwhelming, directly crushing Orphan. If it was a battle of attrition, he definitely wouldn't be able to win, because the amount of astral energy in his body was far inferior compared to his opponent. Chapter 50. Qin Wenyan and Fan Lu finally saw 1,000 Hands again. These few days, although there had been people delivering food to them, 1,000 Hands had yet to appear. Elder. Qin Wenyan stood up and called out. 1,000 Hands nodded. Qin Wenyan, the matter has been investigated. Someone is willing to testify for what happened in the dark forest. Orphan had indeed brought people to hunt you down. As for what happened on the stage a month ago, the disciplinary committee has already announced to the public that it was a matter of personal vendetta. Your punishment is to be confined for a month, and your ranking will be the last amongst the new students. Qin Wenyan had a smile on his face when he heard 1,000 Hands' words. It was absolutely forbidden to kill a fellow student within the academy. Yet, the disciplinary committee had used the word personal vendetta to explain the punishment. It was obvious that the disciplinary committee was biased towards him. Qin Wenyan naturally understood this point. Not only that, this punishment couldn't even be considered a punishment. It was merely a 1-month period of closed-door seclusion. Such an obvious bias could be seen by everyone in the academy. However, this was reality. As long as you had enough talent, you would be able to enjoy extraordinary treatment. Many thanks, Elder. Qin Wenyan smiled as he thanked 1,000 Hands. After bidding farewell, he and Fan Lu left the courtyard together. Just as they exited, a white blur leapt into Qin Wenyan's embrace. Little Rascal stretched out its head and rubbed its face against Qin Wenyan's. In front of Qin Wenyan, A seductive silhouette stood there. Her eyes were filled with charm as she stared at him. Female vixen. Fatty's eyes instantly lit up as he stared unblinkingly at Luo Huan's ample bosom. This figure, Fatty was already swallowing his saliva. Senior sister. Qin Wendian smiled as he walked forward. Luo Huan similarly walked towards Qin Wendian, hooking her arm around Qin Wentian's as she smiled. Little fellow, you've finally come out. Feeling the softness on his arm, Qin Wendian immediately smiled bitterly. Could she not tempt him like this? After all, he was at the age of 16, a hot-blooded age. Fatty jogged forward, arriving at the other side of Luo Huan. After which, he obediently called out, "Senior sister?" Luo Huan glanced at Fan Lu, only to see that Fan Li's arm was slightly bent, as though he was waiting for Luo Huan to do the same. This scene caused Luo Huan to be stunned for a moment, but she soon recovered and smiled at Fan Lu. "Senior sister, I'm Brother Wendian." Fatty took the initiative to approach Luo Huan. Luo Huan laughed and hooked her arm around Fatty's. Momentarily, an intoxicated expression appeared on Fatty's face. Was Fatty's spring finally here? Gotcha. Fatty let out a painful howl and immediately squatted on the ground, hugging his right arm. His forehead was dripping with sweat. Lifting his head, Fatty saw Luo Huan hugging Qin Wendian as they walked away. Tears welled up in his eyes. They were all brothers, but why was there such a huge disparity in treatment? Shouldn't they share blessings together? Boss, wait for me. Fatty gritted his teeth and ran forward. It seemed like he would have to follow his boss in the future. The Emperor Star Academy was extremely vast, with many buildings. It had the Enforcement Hall, Elder Hall, Glory Hall, and the Student Association. Naturally, the Enforcement Hall, Elder Hall, and Glory Hall were all unique. The Student Association was formed by the students of the Emperor Star Academy. The strongest student associations in the Emperor Star Academy were the Azura, Sky Fiend, Night, and Green Cloud associations. Other than this, there were three most important places in the Emperor Star Academy. The first place was the Heavenly Star Pavilion. The Heavenly Star Pavilion contained a vast amount of cultivation arts and innate techniques. The second place was the Astral River Hall. Within it, the pressure from the astral rivers could be simulated, and it could temper a stellar martial cultivator's astral perception, as well as their ability to withstand pressure. This allowed stellar martial cultivators to continuously squeeze out their potential, striving to break through their limits and condense an even higher grade of astral soul. The third place was the Dream Sky Forest. This place was even more mystical. It was an incomparably gigantic dreamscape, and as long as one entered it, they would be brought into a dreamscape. This dreamscape was connected to the four great academies of the royal capital: the Emperor Star Academy, the Royal Academy, the Divine Wind Academy, and the Seven Stars Academy. Heavenly Star Pavilion, Astral River Hall, Dream Sky Forest. Qin Wendian mumbled in a low voice. After listening to Luo Huan's introduction, his heart trembled. The Emperor Star Academy was undoubtedly the #1 power in the Chu country. Even people from other countries would travel thousands of miles just to be a part of it. These three wondrous places played an extremely important role. Senior sister, what's the deal with the Dream Sky Forest? Why is it connected to the other three academies? Qin Wendian curiously asked. The Dream Sky Forest was created by an expert from my Emperor Star Academy who was proficient in dreamscapes. In the beginning, it was only connected to the Emperor Star Academy, allowing the students of the Emperor Star Academy to enter a state of combat at any time without losing their lives. After that, the other three academies sought the help of this senior from the Emperor Star Academy. The senior from the Emperor Star Academy also felt that if there were more experts participating in the dreamscape, the students of the Emperor Star Academy would be able to temper themselves better. Luo Huan explained, hence, the senior from the Emperor Star Academy went to each of the four academies and used a special innate technique to create this dreamscape, connecting the four academies in the dreamscape. This was an advantage for the students of the Emperor Star Academy, as the students of the Emperor Star Academy all gained immense combat prowess from the dreamscape created by the senior from the Emperor Star Academy. Not only that, there were some extraordinary geniuses among them who were extremely willing to use the dreamscape to challenge the students of the Emperor Star Academy in order to temper themselves. This senior's heart is truly magnanimous, and he's willing to benefit others. Qin Wendian laughed. There's no death in the dreamscape, so of course they'd be more than happy to improve their strength. A seductive smile appeared on Luo Huan's face as she stared at Qin Wendian. Junior brother, don't underestimate this dreamscape. That's an extremely deep dreamscape, and the yuan energy of your true body would be expended during combat. Not only that, the taste of death, if you've experienced it before, I believe that no one would be willing to experience it a second time. Qin Wendian's countenance stiffened, before he smiled and nodded his head. Currently, he was also cultivating the Dreamcast art, so he naturally knew how realistic dreamscapes were. This was especially so for the second and third levels of the Dreamcast art. The second level, Creation Dreamscape, allowed one to immerse themselves in the dreamscape. In the dreamscape, death would be an extremely realistic feeling. That kind of feeling would definitely not be good. And according to the records of the Dreamcast art, upon reaching the third level, the Oblivion Dreamscape, the dreamscape would no longer be considered a dream. If one died in the dreamscape, their brain would be stimulated, and their true body would die as well. The intensity of the dreamscape in the Dreamsky Forest should be equivalent to the second level of the Dreamcast art, Creation Dreamscape. This dreamscape was created for the students of the 4 great academies to cultivate. Boss, why don't we go to the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion and choose some supreme innate techniques? Fan Li's eyes lit up as he stared at Qin Wendian. Luo Huan smiled faintly as she looked at Fan Lu. From what I know, junior brother Qin is currently ranked last amongst the freshmen, while you are ranked second to last. Your Emperor Star Jade Medallion should still be at the first level, and you can only enter the first level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion to choose the simplest innate techniques. Qin Wendian and Fan Lu were both depressed. They were actually ranked last and second. What about the Astral River Hall? Fan Lu asked again. Same, you can only enter the first level. Don't tell me that we can't even enter the Dreamsky Forest? There's no restriction in the Dreamsky Forest, you can enter at any time. Luo Huan smiled as she continued, let me send you guys to your lodgings first. You guys can then decide if you want to enter the Dreamsky Forest. Qin Wendian and Fan Lu both nodded their heads. Luo Huan brought the two of them to the lodgings of the freshmen. The rooms were extremely simple, causing Fan Lu to sigh in admiration. So confinement wasn't a punishment, but a reward instead. Every batch of freshmen, this place would always be fully occupied. I'm afraid there won't be any more rooms left. Luo Huan smiled as she walked towards the side of the building, only to discover that all the rooms were already occupied. Only when they arrived at the outskirts of the Dreamsky Forest did they discover a small, unoccupied house. The environment here isn't bad, we'll reach the Dreamsky Forest in just a step. Luo Huan smiled. The freshmen's lodgings were situated right next to the Dreamsky Forest, allowing them to enter the Dreamsky Forest to temper themselves. Senior sister, where will you be staying? Fan Lu pitifully looked at Luo Huan. This place was a little too simple and crude. Don't even think about it. When you raise the grade of your Emperor Star Jade Medallion to the 4th level, you'll be able to choose the villa you want to stay in. Luo Huan smiled as she continued, work hard? How do I raise the grade of my Emperor Star Jade Medallion? Fan Lu asked. This was also a question that Qin Wendian wanted to know the answer to. It seemed that if one wanted to enjoy good resources, they would have to raise the grade of their Emperor Star Jade Medallion. The rankings of freshmen are determined by the Glory Institute. 4 freshmen, those ranked below 30, will have their Emperor Star Jade Medallion upgraded to the 1st level. From the 30th to the 4th level, the Emperor Star Jade Medallion upgraded to the 2nd level. From the 3rd level to the 3rd level, the Emperor Star Jade Medallion upgraded to the 3rd level. However, if you want to raise the grade from the 3rd level to the 4th level, you'll have to hand over 100 2nd layer Yuan Meteor Stones to the Glory Institute. From the 4th level to the 5th level, you'll have to hand over 300 2nd layer Yuan Meteor Stones. From the 6th level to the 7th level. Stop. Qin Wenyan shouted, silently wiping away the cold sweat in his heart. From the 5th level to the 6th level, 1,000 second layer Yuan meteor stones? Was she trying to scare him to death? Luo Huan giggled as she looked at Qin Wenyan. The Emperor Star Academy has to provide for so many people. Do you think it doesn't require resources? These resources can't be obtained by the elders, right? Naturally, we have to depend on the students. Only by doing so will we be able to temper all of you. Even so, there's no need to be so ruthless. Qin Wenyan mumbled. Ruthless? Luo Huan laughed. With the 6th level of the Emperor's Star Jade Medallion, one can already enter the 6th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. The cultivation arts there are already at the peak of Yuan Fu, and even the innate techniques there are at the superior grade of Earth grade. 1,000 second layer Yuan meteor stones is only equivalent to 10 3ND layer Yuan meteor stones. This price is simply too low. Upon hearing Luo Huan's words, Qin Wenyan froze for a moment, but after some thought, he realized that it was indeed the case. The 6th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion was already extremely useful for cultivators at the later 3 levels of Yuan Fu. Not only that, 1,000 second layer Yuan meteor stones wasn't considered much at all. However, Qin Wenyan couldn't help but feel depressed in his heart. In the past, in the Sky Harmony City, the first heavenly layer Yuan meteor stones were extremely valuable. This was because the amount of Yuan meteor stones in the Sky Harmony City was extremely low. Every single Yuan meteor stone represented a chance to nurture a stellar martial cultivator. Hence, everyone treated it as a treasure. But in the royal capital, it was completely different. Chapter 51. Fatty rolled his eyes. If the 6th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion was already at the peak of Yuan Fu, then what about the 7th, 8th and 9th levels? Senior sister, could it be that there are heavenly dipper cultivation arts and innate techniques on the 6th level? Luo Huan smiled at Fatty. In the thousands of years of history of the Emperor Star Academy, is it really that strange to have heavenly dipper cultivation arts? But as for what exactly, I have no idea. After all, I've never been there before. Even if there were heavenly dipper cultivation arts, it didn't mean that one would be able to cultivate to the heavenly dipper realm. The most important factor was still the talent of the cultivator. With the thousands of years of history of the Emperor Star Academy, it wasn't strange for them to have heavenly dipper cultivation arts and innate techniques. Not only that, can you afford to pay the price? Luo Huan smiled as she continued, if you guys are unable to enter the top 30, you can also use your Yuan meteor stones to upgrade your grade to the 3rd level. If you guys wish to advance further, but you don't have enough Yuan meteor stones, you can head to the Glory Institute to accept missions and obtain virtual Yuan meteor stones to upgrade your grade. A mission with 1,000 second heavenly layer Yuan meteor stones? I don't even dare to think about it. Fatty mumbled, I thought that the Emperor Star Academy would use Yuan meteor stones to nurture me, but who would have thought? The Emperor Star Academy has given you the best cultivation environment, as well as a competitive environment. If you can't fight for it, you can only blame your own incompetence. If everyone were to rely on the Emperor Star Academy to nurture them, then the Emperor Star Academy wouldn't be called the Emperor Star Academy. Luo Huan smiled as she continued. Next, enjoy yourselves. There will be a surprise in store for you guys. Lastly, let me remind you that it is absolutely forbidden to disturb the dreamscape of others. After speaking, Luo Huan departed. Fatty was somewhat reluctant to part with her, but he didn't dare to follow her. He could only follow Qin Wenyan and clean up the place. Shall we go to the Dream Sky Forest for a stroll? Fatty smiled as he looked at Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan nodded his head. He also wanted to experience the wonders of the Dream Sky Forest for himself. After exiting the room, they slowly walked towards the depths of the Dream Sky Forest. Instantly, a wave of drowsiness assaulted their senses, causing them to feel dizzy. How powerful! This senior's strength should be at the pinnacle of Yuan Fu. To be able to create a dreamscape, he must have borrowed the power of an array formation. Qin Wenyan guessed. He saw many figures lying under the ancient trees. Obviously, they were all disciples who had entered the dreamland. Beauty. However, Fatty didn't think too much about it. He looked around with his bright eyes and discovered that a young girl had also entered the Dream Sky Forest. She slowly sat down under an ancient tree and fell asleep. Under Qin Wentian's speechless gaze, the fatty ran directly to the girl's side, lay down under the ancient tree and closed his eyes. This made Qin Wentian secretly wipe his sweat. This bastard is too much of a bastard. Drowsiness engulfed him unceasingly. Qin Wentian could only walk to the back of the ancient tree where Fatty was resting and close his eyes. Very swiftly, he fell into a deep slumber. In the dreamland, Qin Wentian surveyed his surroundings. At this moment, he was actually in the middle of a city. Occasionally, he could see the silhouettes of others. Fan Lu and the young girl were not far from him. Because they had entered the dreamland under an ancient tree, their positions weren't too far apart. "Hello, my name is Fan Lu. Is this your first time entering the dreamland of the Dream Sky Forest?" Fan Lu asked the young girl. "No, I've been here a few times. My name is Sheena. I've seen you before during the ranking battle. How awe-inspiring." The young girl smiled as she looked at Fan Lu. That day, when Qin Wentian and Fan Lu killed Orphan on the arena, all the new students had witnessed it with their own eyes. Hence, Qin Wentian and Fan Lu were worshipped by many. Oh. Fatty seemed to be somewhat embarrassed as he smiled shyly. "In order to avenge my brother, I wouldn't hesitate to risk my life. Luckily, I managed to escape unscathed and met a beauty the moment I entered the Dream Sky Forest." Sheena's face reddened. She was somewhat embarrassed by Fatty's words. Cough, cough. Qin Wentian coughed, interrupting the conversation between the two of them. He had to save this pure and innocent girl from her predicament. Qin Wentian. Joy appeared on Sheena's face as her eyes shone with a bright light. In this 1 month, Qin Wentian had become the hottest topic among the new students. On the first day he entered the Emperor Star Academy, he killed Orphan in a domineering manner, and at the same time he released his 4th heavenly layer astral soul, becoming the first person in the history of the Emperor Star Academy. Seeing the look on Sheena's face, Fatty stared at Qin Wentian with a hint of bitterness in his eyes. How could he destroy the feelings of others like this? "Sheena, can you tell us more about the dreamland you were in?" Qin Wentian stared at the city in front of him, his heart filled with shock. Those who cultivated the mandate of dreams could bring others into their dreamland, and the others would have their own consciousness. Just like when he cultivated the Dreamcast art, he knew what he wanted to do in his dreamland. Now it was the same. They had their own consciousness, but the dreamland they were in was a dreamland created by others. This was the power of dreamland. It was as real as reality. The city in this dreamland is known as the City of Illusions. After those from the 4 great academies entered, they would directly appear in this city. Because the dreamland is an illusory existence, you can do whatever you want in the dreamland without any restrictions. Hence, the city is extremely chaotic, with endless battles between the various academies. Especially between the various academies, there would often be intense battles, tempering one's combat prowess. Sheena slowly continued, "There are also those who love to battle, and they would go around looking for people to challenge, tempering themselves." "How do I exit the dreamland?" Qin Wentian asked. If this was his own dreamland, he could rely on his own consciousness to exit it. But this was a dreamland created by others, and it wasn't so easy to exit it. "Do you see those towering structures?" Sheena pointed to a tower-like structure in the distance, so tall that it seemed to touch the heavens. Not only that, there were a few other tower-like structures in the distance. "There's a door at the bottom of these structures. You can exit after entering it." Sheena smiled as she replied, "Of course, other than this method, you can also exit by dying. However, no one would be willing to try dying." "Boss, aren't you going to look for senior sister Luo Huan? You go first, I'll follow Sheena around." Fatty saw that Sheena's attention was completely focused on Qin Wentian, and he couldn't help but interject. Qin Wentian glanced at Fatty, only to see Fatty continuously winking at him, causing Qin Wentian to silently despise this wretched fellow. "Okay, I'll go look for senior sister Luo Huan, you guys go ahead." Qin Wenyan granted Fatty's wish, as he turned and departed. Sheena could only bring Fatty along to explore the City of Illusions. This city was extremely vast, and one could see the silhouettes of people everywhere. Occasionally, there would even be people fighting. At this moment, Qin Wenyan furrowed his brows. His acute senses told him that someone was staring at him. Qin Wenyan didn't bat an eyelid as he continued to stroll around the city. However, this time around, he was heading in the direction of a tower-like structure. This way, he would be able to exit at any time. At the same time that Qin Wenyan had this feeling, Fatty also felt that he was being stared at. His eyes narrowed as he smiled at Sheena. Sheena, you go ahead and explore by yourself. I have some matters to attend to, so I'll have to return first. Sheena was somewhat puzzled, but she soon nodded her head as she replied, but right now, we're quite far away from the exit. If you want to exit, you'll have to walk in the direction that Qin Wenyan went earlier. I understand. Fatty laughed as he continued walking forward, as though he hadn't heard Sheena's words. At this moment, from the various corners of the city, several silhouettes suddenly appeared. Fatty abruptly halted his steps as his countenance turned unsightly. He had been surrounded. Knights Association. Sheena's countenance stiffened when she saw that these people were all clad in robes with the insignia of a knight. This was the Knights Association, one of the 4 strongest student associations. They wanted to deal with Fatty. Fatty, quickly run, they're from the Knights Association. Sheena reminded from behind. Fatty could only smile bitterly. He wanted to run, but the cultivation bases of these people were all higher than him. There was no way for him to escape. The members of the Knights Association continued to press forward, manifesting astral spears in their hands as killing intent gushed forth. This caused Sheena's countenance to turn pale. They wanted to kill Fatty. From afar, there were several spectators who were familiar with Fatty. They couldn't help but to silently muse that Fatty was truly unlucky this time. A raging wind gusted by as over 10 members of the Knights Association simultaneously rushed towards Fatty. That terrifying astral wind was so strong that it felt as though it could tear space apart. Fatty knew that he would die for sure. Hence, he closed his eyes and chose not to resist. Miserable screams reverberated through the air, causing many in the crowd to turn their gazes over. When they saw what was happening, their hearts trembled violently. Numerous long spears pierced through Fan Li's hands, legs, and other parts of his body. The only 2 fatal points that weren't pierced were his heart and chest. Hence, Fan Li, who had always wanted to die, was still alive. But this kind of life was worse than death. You are all senior students. How can you treat him like this? Sheena's face was completely pale. These people were all experts of the Knights Association, yet they dared to treat a newbie like this. You want to try too? A pair of cold eyes stared at her. Sheena was so scared that she didn't dare to speak. Too ruthless. The people in the distance were also speechless. The Knights Union was one of the 4 strongest student unions, and now, they were dealing with a newcomer. This was indeed vicious. Is this really a fucking dream? The fat man gritted his teeth, his body bleeding profusely. He raised his head and saw a figure standing at the top of a building, his knight robe fluttering in the wind. A member of the Knights Association, Orkan. Chapter 52. Orkan's sharp gaze seemed to penetrate through space as he stared at Fan Li. His eyes filled with an incomparable coldness. A month ago, he brought Orfan's corpse back to the clan. At that time, he couldn't forget the looks the entire clan had when they looked at him. Such humiliation, he would definitely make them pay for it. Son of a bitch, if you don't kill me, I will kill you sooner or later. Fan Li grinned as fresh blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. When Qin Wenyan heard Fan Li's screams of agony, he madly sprinted back to where Fan Li was. The members of the Knights Association also appeared around him, but they didn't obstruct him from running towards Fan Li's location. Instead, they followed behind him, as though they wanted him to witness Fan Li's miserable state. When Qin Wenyan arrived, Fan Li was already covered in blood. Sheena was not far away from him, her body trembling uncontrollably. She had never imagined that this dreamscape would be so cruel and torturous. Fatty. Qin Wentian's eyes were bloodshot. Fan Lu struggled to turn his head, only to see Qin Wentian grinning from ear to ear. Boss, wake me up? That won't do. He's in extreme pain in the dream world. If he's woken up directly outside, it'll cause terrible consequences. It's very likely that he'll lose his mind. At this moment, silhouettes appeared on the roofs of the surrounding buildings. The one who spoke was none other than Luo Huan. She stared at Orkan as she said in a cold voice, "The Knights Association has sent out so many experts just to deal with a single new student. How shameless!" Orkan didn't bother with Luo Huan. His cold and arrogant eyes stared down at Qin Wenin as he coldly stated, "I only want him to understand a principle. In this land, talent doesn't mean everything. There's still a long way to go, so be prepared to accept the baptism of reality." Orkan spat out a single word. In an instant, the experts of the Knights Association charged towards Qin Wenin. But Luo Huan and the rest directly leaped downwards. While in the air, Luo Huan spoke to Qin Wenin, "Remember, in the dreamscape, if you are facing a mortal enemy, the best ending for the loser would be death." Qin Wenin stared at the experts of the Knights Association rushing towards him. Abruptly, he took a step forward, causing the ground to tremble. Chief! A terrifying spear light shot out like a poisonous dragon. Qin Wenin slightly shifted his body, allowing a long spear to pierce into his heart. At the same time, his dragon-subduing fist struck out with a terrifying power. With a loud bang, the head of the person in front of him exploded. At the same time, Qin Wenin also died in his dream. Even if he were to die, he would drag someone down with him. Phew! In the dream sky forest, Qin Wenin opened his eyes as he took in deep breaths of air. His heart pounded rapidly. Earlier he had truly experienced death. Such a feeling, even though he knew it was just a dream, it still caused him to feel despair. Drawing in a few deep breaths, Qin Wenin had yet to calm his heart. He directly rushed towards Fan Lu, only to see the chubby body of Fan Lu trembling uncontrollably. The flesh on his face was contorted in agony, as though he was experiencing something extremely painful. Fatty! Qin Wenin clenched his fists tightly. Seeing Fatty in such agony, his heart was filled with pain as well. Arg! Fatty suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream as he opened his eyes. His entire person was sprawled on the ground, gasping for breath as his entire body convulsed. Son of a bitch! Fatty took a long time to regain his composure before raising his head. His eyes narrowed as a cold light flickered within. "Are there any problems with your body?" Qin Wenin nervously stared at Fatty. "Don't worry, it's just a dream." Fatty grinned as though he didn't mind at all. However, the cold glint in the depths of his eyes betrayed him. Evidently, as long as one had experienced that kind of torture, they would never be able to forget it. "No, I want to sleep again. Let's leave this place first." Standing up, Qin Wenin and Fan Lu hurried out of the dormitory. "How did you get out?" Qin Wenin asked. "Senior Sister Luo Huan personally killed me. If not, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to get out." Fan Lu replied. "The Knights Association really gave us a lively lesson on the first day." This lesson was indeed lively. Qin Wenin nodded his head. The two of them returned to their dormitory and rested for a period of time. After which, they walked out of their rooms, only to discover that many students were already heading out. "Hurry up, the Knights Association and the Green Cloud Association are about to clash. There's going to be a good show," someone exclaimed. Qin Wenin and Fan Lu glanced at each other before following after the crowd. The lesson the Knights Association had given them was enough to be engraved in their hearts. Not long after, they arrived at an empty plot of land in the Emperor's Star Academy. There were many people gathered there, and in the middle, there were two groups of old students standing opposite each other, exuding a terrifying cold intent. "Orkan!" Qin Wenin abruptly shifted his gaze in a certain direction. Orkan and the rest had already exited the Dream Sky Forest, bringing along the members of the Knights Association. Senior Sister Luo Huan is here as well. In another direction, Luo Huan and the rest were there. Luo Huan and the rest were from the Green Cloud Association. Qin Wenin and Fan Lu walked towards them. Senior sister. Qin Wendian called out to Luo Huan. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes glanced over before shifting her gaze onto Fan Lu. Smiling, she asked, "You've woken up from the dream, do you still remember it?" "I can't forget it, it's engraved in my heart." Fatty grinned. "That's good. Don't blame senior sister for not warning you guys about the dangers of the Dream Sky Forest. There are some things that can only be understood after experiencing the pain. Consider this as a lesson from the Knights Association. Although this lesson was a little painful, it's still just the beginning of your life in the Emperor Star Academy. Remember, the Emperor Star Academy isn't a greenhouse. I'll only tell you the most basic things. As for the rest, you'll have to experience it yourself." Luo Huan smiled at the two of them. "Do you hate the Knights Association?" "Of course." Fatty laughed. "Then think of a way to trample them under our feet. If not, we'll be trampled under our feet, just like in the dream." Luo Huan continued smiling. That smile of hers contained hints of wisdom and farsightedness. The Knights Association is truly impressive. To think of so many experts to ambush two new students in the City of Illusions. Luo Huan inclined her head, staring at the members of the Knights Association. Her beautiful eyes, at this moment, flickered with a cold light. "So what of it?" Orkan faintly stated as he glanced at Qin Wenyan and Fan Lu. His countenance was as cold as ice. "This is only the beginning. Shameless trash." Mountain's temper was extremely bad as he roared at the members of the Knights Association. "You don't have the qualifications to speak to me." Orkan swept a glance at Mountain before shifting his gaze onto Luo Huan. A faint smile could be seen on his face as he continued, "The Knights Association and Green Cloud Association have been fighting for so long. Why don't we take a break and play some new tricks?" "How do you want to play?" Luo Huan inquired. "My Knights Association has recruited 2 new students, and your Green Cloud Association has one as well. How about a 4-man battle?" Orkan laughed as he looked at Luo Huan, causing her countenance to turn unsightly. Everyone knew that the Knights Association was the one that attracted the most new students. The reason was simple. The members of the Knights Association were all descendants of nobility. The Emperor Star Academy was established to nurture the most outstanding stellar martial cultivators. Here, there were no boundaries, only talent and ability. There were many nobles in the royal capital, and the descendants of those nobles weren't like the silk pants that many people imagined. Although there were some silk pants among them, there were also many who were extremely outstanding. In addition to the resources they had, many descendants of the nobles chose to enroll in the Emperor Star Academy. After that, they gradually formed a power, which was known as the Knights Association. The establishment of the Knights Association caused a storm of nobility within the Emperor Star Academy, and the Green Cloud Association was born. They believed that the Emperor Star Academy was a clean place, and that there shouldn't be any atmosphere of nobility. They didn't care if you were a noble or not, but they hated such an atmosphere. Hence, the Knights Association and the Green Cloud Association had always stood on opposite sides, and gradually, they became mortal enemies. Long before the Knights Association and the Green Cloud Association were formed, the Heavenly Demon Association had already existed. The Heavenly Demon Association was the only alliance of students in the Emperor Star Academy, and they had the longest history. The Azure Association was the last to be established. They couldn't be bothered with such matters, and only focused on improving their own strength. The members of the Azure Association were the most ruthless towards themselves, and they would spend most of their time in the dark forest to temper themselves. Out of the 4 alliances, the wealthiest was naturally the Knights Association. This wealth was sufficient to raise the grade of their Emperor's Star Jade Medallion. This kind of wealth allowed 2 of the top 3 students to join the Knights Alliance. The first was Murong Feng, and the third was Du Hao. Murong Feng was at the 4th level of arterial circulation, while Du Hao was at the 3rd level. Evidently, Qin Wendian and Fan Lu had already been treated as members of the Green Cloud Association, and their cultivation bases were only at the 1st level of arterial circulation. The Knights Association had an overwhelming advantage in the battle proposed by Orkan. Two silhouettes walked out from behind Orkan. These two silhouettes were none other than Murong Feng and Du Hao. Murong Feng was the strongest amongst this batch of new students, while Qin Wenyan was the one with the highest potential. The gazes of the two of them intersected in midair. I admit that you have talent. In the future, you might have the qualifications to stand in front of me. But now, every time I hear people talking about me in the same breath as you, I can't help but sigh in my heart. Why are there so many idiots in the Emperor Star Academy? Murong Feng's voice was emotionless, causing the surrounding crowd to be in an uproar. Without any suspense, Murong Feng, who had defeated all his opponents and obtained the position of the top ranker, had the confidence to say such words. Being of the same age as Qin Wenyan, he had his own pride, and he wouldn't allow anyone to blaspheme him. Chapter 53. Reaching the 4th level of arterial circulation at the age of 16. In the entire Chu country, this kind of talent was definitely at the peak. Not only that, Murong Feng's astral souls weren't weak either. His first astral soul originated from the 2nd heavenly layer, while his second astral soul originated from the 3rd heavenly layer. He was the purest type of stellar martial cultivator, and only after condensing his astral souls did he start to temper his physique. He used a year and a half to perfect his physique and stepped into the arterial circulation realm. This kind of talent was already extremely rare. After all, not everyone could be like Qin Wenyan. Using the astral energy from the 5th heavenly layer to temper his physique, as well as the tyrannical tempering method of the tempered thousand hammer tempering technique, the effects of his physique would naturally be tens of times better than others. Murong Feng's words were very clear. Maybe in the future, Qin Wenyan would have the ability to contend against him. But now, Qin Wenyan didn't have the qualifications to be mentioned in the same breath as him. Qin Wenyan didn't look at Murong Feng. Of course, it wasn't because of fear or trepidation. In truth, he didn't understand Murong Feng at all, and had no interest in understanding him. Regardless of how talented Murong Feng was, what did it have to do with him? But now that Murong Feng was representing the Knights Association, it had to do with him. Especially after the torture that Murong Feng had suffered not too long ago, Qin Wenyan looked at Fan Le. Can I make the decision? Fan Le stared at Qin Wenyan as he asked. No matter what decision you make, I will accompany you. Qin Wenyan laughed. Of course, let's do it. Fatty laughed as he turned to Luo Huan. Senior sister, since they want to play, let's play with them. Let's set the time for a month from now. Are you sure? Luo Huan glanced at Qin Wenyan and Fan Le. These two people were going to be extremely troublesome to deal with. Fan Le shrugged his shoulders as he laughed. I don't have that many yuan meteor stones. In that case, I can only use this method to raise the grade of my Emperor Star Jade Medallion. The top 3 in the Emperor Star Academy would be able to raise the grade of their medallion to the 3rd level. Since that's the case, why don't you raise your cultivation base to the 4th level in one go? In addition to the 202nd heavenly layer yuan meteor stones as the wager, if you guys win, wouldn't you be able to directly raise your cultivation base to the 4th level? Orkan's words caused the surrounding crowd to draw in a breath of cold air. 202nd layer yuan meteor stones, to a new student, was an absolutely terrifying sum. 102nd layer yuan meteor stones were sufficient to upgrade the Jade Medallion to the 4th grade. Not only for the freshmen, but also for the Knights Association. This was a huge number, but he was sure that they would win. This was a battle without any suspense. Luo Huan's eyes narrowed. To the Qingyun Alliance, this number was still a huge pressure. Our Qingyun Alliance can still afford to fork out 200 yuan meteor stones? The young man beside Luo Huan laughed. Luo Huan nodded her head as she turned to Orkan and stated, Firstly, I have to make 2 things clear. Firstly, Qin Wenyan and Fan Lu are not members of our Qingyun Alliance. Our Qingyun Alliance only acted because we couldn't stand the despicable actions of your Knights Association. A bunch of old students ganging up on 2 newbies? How glorious is that? Secondly, our Qingyun Alliance will accept this bet. If we win, the wager belongs to Qin Wenyan and Fan Le. If we lose, the wager belongs to our Qingyun alliance. Thirdly, our Qingyun alliance will never be like the Knights Association, using benefits to entice people to join us. And for those who are willing to join us for benefits, we will never accept them, even if they have extraordinary talent. The young man beside Luo Huan added, as a faint smile hung on his face. This was the concept of the Qingyun alliance. Their style was completely different from the Knights Association. This world was originally a world where the hearts of people were blinded by benefits. Why did they still want to bring this kind of atmosphere to the Emperor Star Academy? The Qingyun alliance had always upheld this belief. Foolish. Orkan and the other members of the Knights Association also looked down on the Qingyun alliance. They felt that if there were no benefits, why would they cooperate? All trust was built on the foundation of benefits. 1 month from now, I'm filled with anticipation. Orkan led the members of the Knights Association and departed. Murong Feng cast a deep glance at Qin Wenyin and Fan Lu, as a strange expression appeared on his face. What kind of blind self-confidence is it that made you guys dare to accept the challenge? If the rules of the Emperor Star Academy were to be changed, things would be much better. Du Hao also felt that something was amiss, as he left with Murong Feng. Senior sister, are you the leader of the Qingyun alliance? Qin Wendian stared at Luo Huan in bewilderment. However, Luo Huan shook her head as she smiled. I'm in charge of the matters of the Qingyun alliance, while Orkan is in charge of the matters of the Knights Association. However, the leaders of the two alliances are Yuanfu cultivators. Do you guys want to reconsider? That's not important. In any case, from today onwards, my first wish in the Emperor Star Academy is to make the Knights Association completely disappear from the Academy. A cold light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. He would definitely work hard for this goal. It doesn't matter if you join the Qingyun alliance or not. However, you guys have to make good use of this 1 month's time. Luo Huan smiled. To defeat 2 of the top 3 in a month's time, the pressure was extremely great. Fatty should also work hard. Fan Lu narrowed his eyes as he laughed. Senior sister, boss, I'll return to cultivate first. Qin Wenyan stared at Fatty's departing figure, feeling slightly moved. What happened in the Dream Sky Forest today had clearly affected Fatty greatly. Even if it wasn't for himself, but for Fatty, Qin Wenyan still wanted to raise his strength within this 1 month. In a month's time, he should be able to step into the 2nd level of arterial circulation. If he wanted to raise his combat prowess further, he would have to rely on the spirit refinement method to condense his divine yuan energy, as well as the earth-grade innate technique, the 1,000 Hands imprint. All of these required a large amount of yuan meteor stones to support his cultivation. Seems like I have to make a trip to the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Qin Wenyan murmured in his heart. He then turned to Luo Huan and asked, Senior sister, can I leave the academy anytime I want? Luo Huan naturally understood what Qin Wendian wanted to ask. Currently, Qin Wendian had offended both the Yi and O clan. Although he was very safe within the Emperor Star Academy, would he be safe once he exited? Be careful. Luo Huan smiled. Try not to give others the opportunity to assassinate you. If someone wants to deal with you, they still have to consider the Emperor Star Academy. Luo Huan believed that from the day Qin Wenyan entered the academy, he had already been listed as one of the most important people in the academy. If someone wanted to deal with Qin Wenyan, they would have to consider the Emperor Star Academy behind Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan nodded his head. He understood that there was nothing wrong with being careful. Even Orkan wanted nothing more than to kill him. It was just that he couldn't do so in the Emperor Star Academy. Work hard, junior brother. Your senior sister has high hopes for you. Luo Huan rubbed Qin Wentian's head, causing Qin Wendian to have a bitter smile on his face. Unknowingly, Little Rascal had already leapt onto Luo Huan's shoulder, rubbing its head against Luo Huan's face. Lecherous dog, let's go. Qin Wendian laughed as he turned and departed. Little Rascal directly leapt down and followed Qin Wendian out of the academy. A human and a demonic beast strolled through the academy. The youth inclined his head slightly as the rays of the sun shone on his face. The corners of his mouth curled up in a faint smile. No matter how dense the dark clouds were, they were unable to block the dazzling rays of the sun. Luo Huan gazed at the back view of Qin Wenyin, as the smile in her eyes grew even more intense. She was filled with anticipation for her two junior brothers. When would the future Qin Wenyin be as dazzling as the sun? Many in the Emperor Star Academy stared at the departing figure of Qin Wenyin as they wondered in their hearts. A month from now, would the first student in the history of the Emperor Star Academy to kill his opponent in the ranking battle be able to defeat Murong Feng? Qin Wenyin arrived at the Divine Weapon Pavilion and looked for Francis. Francis brought 2 pieces of good news to Qin Wenyin. The 3 divine weapons he had left behind would be auctioned off once in a while, causing a huge wave of commotion. The divine imprint that Qin Wenyin had inscribed was named the Origin Returning Divine Imprint. Not only was it an amplification divine imprint, it also had the effect of storing origin energy. In times of danger, it could even save one's life. Not only that, there were many weaponsmiths who wanted to unravel this divine imprint. Hence, every time the Divine Weapon Pavilion held an auction, it would cause a huge wave of commotion. The second piece of good news was that after Francis had been promoted, he was able to come into contact with the second-level divine imprints of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Currently, he had already stepped into the realm of a second-level weaponsmith, and his status had risen by a level. To Qin Wenyin, this was extremely good news. As long as he continued to comprehend the origin-returning divine imprint, he would be able to use even better materials to forge a second-level mid-grade divine weapon. At that time, it wouldn't be difficult for him to raise the grade of his Emperor's Star Jade Medallion to the 5th level. At that time, he would be able to come into contact with extremely tyrannical Earth-ranked innate techniques. Qin Wenyin first forged a few divine weapons together with Francis, before handing them over to the Divine Weapon Pavilion, allowing them to pay some yuan meteor stones in advance for his cultivation. At the same time, he continued to comprehend the origin-returning divine imprint. Half a month later, Qin Wenyin and Francis finally managed to forge a second-level mid-grade divine weapon using the origin-returning divine imprint, and handed it over to Yang Chen. Yang Chen was extremely excited, and he immediately started to advertise the divine imprint, causing a huge commotion as he waited for the auction to begin 3 days later. As for Qin Wenyin himself, he had already entered the most crucial period of his cultivation. The arterial pathways in his body had already reached a limit, and this meant that he was only a single step away from stepping into the second level of the arterial circulation realm. Chapter 54. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. Today was the day of the Divine Weapon Pavilion's auction. Although it was an auction, the Divine Weapon Pavilion did not have an official auction venue. The reason for this was because they wanted to raise the price of the divine weapons. This was also the usual method of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. As long as there were rare and precious divine weapons, they would be auctioned. At this moment, many people had gathered on the second level of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Luckily, the Divine Weapon Pavilion was spacious enough to accommodate so many people. Many adventurers who had been active in the Dark Forest for a long time had come here. Even if they did not have enough wealth to purchase the legendary Origin Sword, they could still take a stroll around the Divine Weapon Pavilion to see if there was a divine weapon that they were satisfied with. Naturally, the competition for the Origin Sword was bound to involve the participation of weaponsmiths. Gretchen had also come to the Divine Weapon Pavilion today. She was different from many others. She was determined to obtain the Origin Sword. Coincidentally, she needed a good divine weapon. She had heard of the rumors about the Origin Sword before, and her heart was moved. Other than that, if she could auction it off, she would let her master Murin study it and see if he could derive the divine imprints contained within. Accompanying Gretchen were a few of her companions, all of whom were students of the Royal Academy. Gretchen, other than being a disciple of Murin, was also a student of the Royal Academy. Fan Lu had also come today. These few days, Qin Wenyin had not returned to the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Fan Lu knew that Qin Wenyin was in the Divine Weapon Pavilion, and after asking around, he found out that the Divine Weapon Pavilion would be auctioning off the Origin Sword today. Hence, he came to look for Qin Wenyin. Qin Wendian and Francis were also among the crowd. They were filled with anticipation, wondering how much this second-level divine weapon would fetch. Boss. At this moment, Qin Wendian heard Fan Li's voice. Turning his head, he discovered that Fan Lu and Shino were walking over together. He couldn't help but smile. Fatty, you're really something. I'm only here out of curiosity. Sheena felt somewhat bashful when she saw the look in Qin Wendian's eyes. Sheena's skin is thin, don't talk nonsense. Fatty laughed. However, Sheena is somewhat interested in that sword. Oh? Qin Wendian cast a glance at Sheena, only to hear her reply, the second astral soul I condensed is a sword astral soul. However, I'm afraid I won't be able to afford the origin returning sword. Let's see if there are any other divine weapons. As she spoke, Xen Ran's gaze turned towards the sword wall of the divine weapon pavilion. There, a sword hung there, radiating with light. Of course, it was impossible to judge the quality of the divine weapon just by looking at it. Only by channeling Yuan power into it would one be able to sense it. Good sword. At this moment, a voice rang out from the crowd. Immediately, many gazes turned towards the owner of the voice. When they saw a young man drinking wine from a jug, the crowd couldn't help but laugh. Immortal drunken wine, you haven't even touched the sword. How do you know if it's a good sword? Someone said with a smile. It's just a feeling. Immortal drunken wine placed his wine gourd down and looked at the person who spoke. He shook his head and said, You don't understand. Seeing the expression on Immortal drunken wine's face, many people laughed. Qin Wendian also laughed. This fellow was truly interesting. She is Immortal drunken wine. Xen Ran stared at Immortal drunken wine, her eyes flashing with a strange light. You know of him? Qin Wendian asked. Immortal drunken wine, ranked third among the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. Of course I've heard of him. Xen Ran replied as if it was a matter of course. This caused Qin Wendian to be slightly taken aback. This young man who liked to get drunk was actually ranked third among the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. The 10 prodigies refer to the 10 most outstanding geniuses in the royal capital below the age of 20. Xen Ran was somewhat taken aback. Wasn't Immortal drunken wine a little too easygoing? At this moment, Qin Wendian felt a cold glint of light shooting in his direction. Shifting his gaze over, his eyes narrowed. Francis, it's you guys. Gretchen didn't expect that she would meet Qin Wendian and Francis in the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Previously, after returning to the royal capital from the Sky Harmony City, the Yi clan had sent over many resources, and Murin had allowed her to enter closed-door cultivation in the Star River Association. During this period of closed-door cultivation, Gretchen had successfully broken through the bottleneck of a first-level weaponsmith, becoming a young second-level weaponsmith. Just a few days ago, when she returned to the Royal Academy, the people around her all wanted to get closer to her after learning that she had become a second-level weaponsmith. A second-level weaponsmith didn't need to worry about connections or wealth. Not to mention, Gretchen was a second-level weaponsmith at such a young age. Gretchen's future was limitless, and if she could become a third-level weaponsmith in the future, she would definitely become one of the most sought-after characters in the Chu country. Even Yuanfu realm cultivators would need her help, and her wealth would be endless. The Divine Weapon Pavilion was extremely influential in the royal capital because they nurtured a group of weaponsmiths. The wealth of the Divine Weapon Pavilion was definitely terrifying. In this world, wealth was equivalent to cultivation resources, and with enough resources, experts could be nurtured. Francis coldly snorted when he saw Gretchen. He would never forget what Murin had done to him, and this disciple of Murin was also arrogant to the extreme in front of him. The two of you are actually together? A cold glint of light flashed in Gretchen's eyes as she stared at Francis and Qin Wendian, who were standing together. After which, she coldly stated, Snakes and rats from the same nest? Boss, who is this girl? Fan Li stared at Qin Wendian as his shifty eyes started to roam about Gretchen's body, causing Qin Wendian to silently despise him. As long as it was a girl, he wouldn't let it go. But of course, Gretchen was also a beauty to boot. However, Qin Wentian's impression of Gretchen wasn't very good. That day at the Star River Association, Murin had forced him to make a choice when he had nowhere else to go. This lady had used the same arrogant look in her eyes right now, telling him that with the status of the Qin clan, taking Murin as a disciple would be a great blessing to Qin Wenin, an honor to him. I'm from the Star River Association, the disciple of a despicable weaponsmith. Qin Wenin replied. Impudent. Gretchen's countenance turned cold, as a cold intent gushed forth from her body. You actually dare to insult my master? Are you courting death? You are the impudent one. You've already done it, but you don't dare to admit it? Francis coldly stated, Murin and I are both from the Star River Association, yet he forcefully snatched my divine imprint and refused to return it. Don't tell me you feel that's not despicable enough? Gretchen stared at Francis. She didn't expect that the fellow who had been so submissive in the past would actually dare to insult her master, Murin. Dog slave, if you don't kneel down and apologize for your words earlier, don't even think about leaving here alive today. Gretchen continued to look down at Francis with an arrogant gaze. In her eyes, Francis was nothing more than a slave, yet he dared to insult her master in front of her. If she didn't do anything, wouldn't she lose all her face if this matter were to spread to her master's ears? Upon hearing Gretchen's words, Francis's countenance turned extremely unsightly to behold. He, Francis, had always been a cautious person, and had always been submissive in front of those in the upper echelons. However, this was the first time he was insulted in such a manner. Not only that, the person who insulted him was a mere lass. Indeed, what kind of master will teach what kind of disciple? Qin Wenin stared at Gretchen. The things that Murin did to me, just using the word despicable is far from enough. Gretchen shifted her gaze onto Qin Wenin. That pair of cold and arrogant eyes of hers seriously scrutinized him. A strange smile gradually appeared on her face, and within that smile was an unmasked disdain. I really don't understand. What gave you the courage to say such words? I hope that before the auction ends, you won't escape. As she spoke, Gretchen's gaze shifted to the sword rampart in front of her, as a cold light flickered in her eyes. The three people behind her also had cold, mocking smiles on their faces as they stared at Qin Wenin and Francis. Who would be so arrogant as to offend such a young second-level weaponsmith? Not only that, this genius weaponsmith was also a disciple of the Royal Academy and the young miss of the Guan clan. Boss, that girl's cultivation base is ordinary, only at the third level of arterial circulation. Of the three people behind her, 2 are at the second level of arterial circulation. As for the guy at the end, he's probably a tough nut to crack. His cultivation base should be at least at the 5th level of arterial circulation. Fan Lu whispered to Qin Wenin. If they were to make a move, it was best to first understand their opponent's strength. Only then would they be prepared. Qin Wenin lightly nodded his head, only to see Fatty laughing. If we were to make a move, we should be able to take down that girl in an instant. As for the other 3, they wouldn't even have the chance to act. You broke through? Qin Wentian's eyes shone with a bright light as he heard Fan Li's confident words. Fatty winked at him as he laughed. You've already broken through to the 2nd level of arterial circulation. Isn't it normal for me to break through as well? 2 nights ago, Qin Wenin had already used his tyrannical astral energy to break through the limits of his arterial circulation and arterial circulation, opening up his 2nd arterial circulation. Currently, his body could contain an even greater amount of astral energy, and with 2 arterial circulation meridians, he could sense every part of his body. Regardless of whether it was his vision, hearing, or the power of his attacks, all of them had improved by leaps and bounds. Why do you sound as though I'm inferior to you? Qin Wenin said with disdain. I'm just stating a fact. Fatty laughed as his eyes shone with a bright light. There's still 10 days left. I'm really looking forward to it. 200 yuan meteor stones, even the Knights Association would feel heartache. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.